Garrett, welcome back again, man.
Good to be back.
Yeah, dude, it's been a whirlwind. Let's see. When was the last time we did this? When we were, God, what was it, like roughly Q4 of 2019?
Yeah, or Q1. It was like I was gonna say Jan Feb, somewhere in there, right before the world changed.
Right before Clown World kicked off, and it's kind of funny what we were talking about as far as issues and stuff. As I recollect, it was a very informative. We got really in depth on how to run a business, on growing distribution with 10 Barrel, and how you ended up doing that, how you brought that over into Life and Time. And, we talk about a bit, you taught me about Jordan Peterson, which, by the way, since then, that's one of my go-tos on YouTube. So thank you for that. And the 12 meanings of life, or 12 rules for life. Yep. That's been a staple for myself. And he just really speaks really well to me and millions of others. So didn't know about that. So, and we were getting into all that kind of stuff and what mattered. What I find interesting is that is where our minds were then. And then here we are, fast forward 9 months. Where would you say, how's your mind change? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's funny what's good and what's bad, and how's your mind change? It's a broad question.
It is a broad question, but I think, how has my mind changed? Well, it changed for a while, because for a while there, right, we went into survival mode. It was no longer about growth or potential or new ideas. It was about survival.
That's exactly what happened with us too. Yeah. Just how do we keep the lights on?
Yep. And, especially with, primary, coming from the restaurant. And for those that don't know,
you right now you own which restaurants?
Life and Time.
Life and Time.
Vida Tacos. Mm-hmm. Then we've got Mavericks that we partnered on that we're getting ready to, we were planning on reopening here in about 2 weeks.
Sure.
With a full rebrand, and really excited about that. And then, a handful of other things. Yeah, new projects.
So those are the main ones. And so you kind of have, for those Ben listeners that don't know about Life and Time, where have you been for the past couple of years? But if you don't know, there's a drive-through, which helps you out a lot with this. Yep. But you still have the dine-in that helps. And then the Life and Tacos, Vida Tacos, there's no drive-through.
No.
So,
and that was rough. And that's, we, I say we saw it coming. A lot of people did. As March was progressing, leading up to, I think, what it was, the 16th, I believe, was the shutdown, somewhere right there. That week prior, actually 2 weeks prior, really kind of seeing what was coming across, Europe. And we kind of started having conversations. All right, we need to start thinking about a plan. And it's funny, I still have the whiteboard up. And about a week before the shutdown, it was okay, worst case scenario. What's our worst? Let's start at the bottom and work backwards. And worst case scenario was okay, total shutdown. Kids don't go to school, which means, parents stuck at home, which means this. And it was 7 out of 8 what happened 10 days later, And it was rough. I think, we'd sit down for 5 hours, make a plan, feel good about it. And then at 11 o'clock that night, I'm calling my partner and I'm like, see you at 6. We got to write a new plan. This plan doesn't work anymore. Right. Because things were changing so fast.
Right.
But we as soon as the shutdown came, we stopped the bleeding, shut down Life and Time. I've got some other investments on the cannabis side of things.
So you just shut it down. It wasn't running at all.
Vida, we just closed.
Vida closed. Life and Time. The drive-through was closed.
No, we stayed open. Sorry. Okay. We closed Vida, hunkered into Life and Time, had to make the brutal decision. We immediately just laid off 90%, basically got down to our salaried managers.
Yeah.
Had all those conversations, which was brutal.
I had to do that too. It was awful. Yeah.
And, I'd say it was the worst day of my professional career, worst way, 24 hours for me,
I would agree.
But the plan worked, kind of hunkered in, got our core group, was all right, guys, here's the plan, right? We're all hunkered in here. We're going to focus our efforts in one place and see what happens, right? And play it by ear. And we just, Vida had been open 6 weeks at the time. So it was terrible timing for us, right? And there was other restaurants around town that were, I think one had their grand opening the 15th, some brutal timing. And so, but yeah, that drive-through really saved us, and we let we listen to our customers. Right? We actually end up putting our team in masks long before they were mandated because our customers were asking for it. Mm-hmm. Right? Okay. I mean, that's what we're here for, serve the customer. So
it's funny how capitalism works like that.
Right? Yeah. Like you make your own choice and let that dictate itself. We could use a little more of that right now.
Yeah. So an amazing thing. So not an amazing thing, but one thing that I ended up telling to a few friends, I don't know if I said it on this podcast, but I don't think I did because we shut down the podcast as well when this thing was going. Like this was an afterthought. It was get Mazama healthy, get it going. Had to let go of like 6 people. It was also brutal as heck. Put together a whole plan. Basically was in the same shoes as you. But with this whole government mandate, especially since we're in Oregon, we are dealing with a Democratic governor, Kate Brown, who basically is forcing us to go on lockdown again tomorrow. Mm-hmm. That would be November 18th would be tomorrow. We're filming this on the 17th. And I was like, just let the free markets figure out how to handle a pandemic. And people will be like, well, what are you talking about? I was like, well, let's just put a scenario out here. Let's say that you had Perea and Wild Rose in town. Like, yeah. It's like, okay. So let's say that Perea ends up taking it very seriously, and they end up putting up plexiglass everywhere. Everybody's wearing masks. They have people stand outside. You end up they come up with some text ordering system. So when you can come in, it's all done in an orderly manner, blah, blah, blah. And let's say Wild Rose, that place is always jam-packed. They just open as usual, right? And they act like nothing's going on. So people go into both, and as time goes on, reports are coming that Wild Rose has been contact traced to these outbreaks. So what are you going to do as a person knowing that people keep on getting sick when they go there? You're probably not going to go there. Mm-hmm. So Wild Rose is going to deal with a big decrease in sales. Meanwhile, Perea, since they were taking all the precautions without the government telling them, is doing well. And so Wild Rose is like, wow, they're doing well. We're getting killed. In order to save the business, we need to put up this stuff and then do a marketing campaign saying that, hey, we are now safe. Look at all these things we've done. So I was saying this, that exact example. I was saying that in March and April. And actually what ended up happening with that example was that happened, but it was the opposite. So Wild Rose went crazy. Like if you go in there,
you go in there once a week.
There's dividers of in every. It's actually kind of cool. It's like your own little private booth.
I thought we had the lunch in there a couple weeks ago for the first time in a while, and I'm like, I can hear my conversation. I don't mind it in this place. I don't mind it.
Yeah, no, I thought it was kind of neat. It was like you had your own. Everybody had their own little booth. It was all plexiglassed out, whether or not. I don't need to get into the conversation. The virus is definitely out there. It's definitely hitting people. So anyway, that's what they did. Business has been going relatively well. Perea, Mitch and I went in there in May or June. We went in there to get we wanted fish tacos. So we go in there to get the fish tacos, and they have like the line outside. Like, okay, then it's our time to go. And it's time to go up, and there's a... Perea basically is kind of like the Subway. Their model is kind of like a Subway for tacos. So you have an acrylic shield that covers the food, and you look at it, and they pick the stuff up. There was one acrylic shield, a gap where one was missing that was about 4 feet long, and that was the one that exposed the cheese, the lettuce, the chicken, like all the food. Yeah. And it was just straight up not there. Like, I wouldn't even like that in a non-pandemic time. Like, I would be like, hey, this is weird. People could be sneezing on it. I don't want to get the flu or common cold, or in this case now COVID. And then another acrylic glass is there, and then they handed you stuff. And so Mitch and I were literally like, should we risk it? Like, and this is coming from a guy that I don't think like COVID is something that we should all hunker down and ruin our lives for. Mm-hmm. So I'm more of like a pretty casual, but that was just like, what the heck? Sure enough, they ended up shutting down a few weeks later. And Mitch and I, as we decided to risk it, and we were eating our fish tacos, and we both were like, I'm not coming back.
Feels dirty. Not coming back.
And that's the free,
that's
make
us.
That
choice.
And that's me and Mitch voting with our wallets to keep, to not go back to Perea. That's the most powerful vote that people have that they don't realize. So when you guys have the masks on and you decide to do that, and that's what your customers want, then that's what you give them. And you don't need to be told to do that.
Right.
But here we are being told.
Yeah, it's a unique time. I don't think any of us ever imagined being in a situation like this. I mean, just with the virus. Mm-hmm. It's unique to us, to our generation, right? Prior generations have been through things. But I do think it's a crisis that no one is letting go to waste, is what I think, right? As you should never do, right?
Yeah, don't let any opportunity go to waste.
And when you look at it, I'm not saying there's some big play for this control and we're being mind swept into this or whatever. I mean, there's lots of theories out there, and we could talk for hours about ideas like that.
I'll say that.
Take it at face value. Even at face value, though, even without going down those roads, at face value, it's bullshit. Yeah. I mean, from so many perspectives, I'm with you. Like, the virus is out there. It's real. I'm not a denier, for sure. One of the problems, though, is that we've never gotten real numbers. We've never gotten clean numbers. So now we don't trust any numbers. I'm a guy that's like, I do it with my, with my controller, right? He gives me a set of numbers. If I find one thing wrong, I hand him back and say, these numbers are bad, right? So you do that to the entire world. And it's not one number. It's things are changing every day, right? And testing is changing every day. And I know people that have had false positives, and it's and I get it. The system's not perfect.
But Elon Musk had
4 tests or something.
Musk.
He got like 4 tests or something like
Jacob
that.
Will throw it up there. He got 4 tests. Same nurse, same machine. 2 came back positive. 2 came back negative.
Yeah. So again, I'm not a denier. It's out there, but we have to just face reality. This is nature.
Yeah.
Right? We're just organisms on this planet. This is nature, and it's something we have to deal with. And what else we have to deal with is livelihoods. We have to deal with raising children into real people, right? And by coming in and forcing us to close down and forcing out and driving up the debt and forcing down all these dollars and all these things, it's just not the way it's supposed to go. And I really believe I'm not a denier. I am a constitutionalist, though, right? And we have rights. And they're being infringed upon dramatically. And the free market has to be able to sort these things out, right? And I think if they would let the free market sort them out, and there's the argument, well, some people are going to ignore it. That's their choice, right? But here's what we can't have. We can't drive this country into a depression. We can't bankrupt people. What's going to happen when, all these people, another closure, and look at gyms. Gyms are hanging on by a thread. Restaurants, of course, are the easy low-hanging fruit. So I like to talk about other things, but hanging on by a thread.
And the concert industry is just done.
Oh, it's done. I mean, if anyone even wanted it, probably pick up Live Nation for, pennies on the dollar here, pretty soon. But you look at these things and you have to take those things into account. You have to account for them properly. And it's just, what are we trading for? Right?
That's
what are we trading for?
I guess it's to save grandma, right?
Right, which is great.
Which makes you like an evil capitalist. Like, how could you not be considerate of like save grandma? Like, there's people dying, Garrett. How dare you?
They're every day.
Yeah,
always has been. And and I don't want to make a joke of it. People are dying, but
they are. But it's not at the rate that we were sold, or that I was sold when I shut down our office before the governor even told us to. I want to make sure that our team was safe and everything like that. And what the Italy images were horrific.
Right.
Like, holy crap, that's going to happen here. Like, and then we've been living with it for 7-8 months, whatever it's been. And it just hasn't done that.
Well, and let's look at the dynamics of Italy.
They're old.
Right. They're old. I understand even more obese as a country than the United States. They smoke. I know for that. Don't quote me on that. Okay. But I know
they smoke.
They smoke at a rate dramatically higher, and they're multi-generational family households, like much, much higher rate, right? So they're living with grandparents and so susceptible. If I lived with my grandparents, I would probably change my habits a little bit. I would make that choice for them, right? We'd figure that out. But I also think,
but that's a great point, like making the choice or helping with them. My grandma wants nothing more but me to get on a plane that does disease festival and come and see her in Florida in her open state house. She's 80 something. And I was like, Grandma, what about the disease and everything like that? I'd rather see you. I don't care. My mom, who's 60, she in first we're like, okay, yeah, don't touch or anything like that. And it was only until May, she's like, I don't care. And just giving me a big hug. Yep. So you have to, when somebody decides that they would rather be loved and be with their family than be forced to not have Thanksgiving together, they should have that choice. Just like you have the choice to jump out of an airplane. Mm-hmm. You can go mountain biking down Bachelor, down this thing called Rockfall, which is basically right down a lava fall that cheese grades the hell out of you. It's your choice.
Yeah.
You can drive. You can drive after having a few drinks. You shouldn't, but you can.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are being like, oh, well, this is just too much of a risk. And I would be with you if it was about what it was supposed to be about when Kate Brown made the call, which was to flatten a curve.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
We did that. Yeah, supposed to be 2 weeks.
Yeah, 8 months ago.
Yeah.
You know, I think...
how many people are in the ICU beds? Let's see if it's changed. I think it's 4. We have 4. That's the Musk thing there. I want to make sure that Tam wasn't... Hey. I was just making sure.
Look at that.
Thank you so much.
Delivery of the day.
Yeah. If you could re-put up those for Kobe. Yeah. Thanks, Tam.
You know, and there's several things to unpack there too, but you know, I like that now it's turned to where, and I think this is some of the times, like people, you know, are being called selfish if they don't stay in their house and not see their family and follow these orders, mm-hmm. which is what they are, right? And I mean, that was a quote, their orders. But when did it come that it's selfish for me to look out for, like, to not look out for your, don't you think it's selfish for you to expect me to change my life to protect your health? That, to me, that's pretty selfish, right?
Sounds pretty selfish.
It's not selfish for, you know, it to work the other way. It's selfish for me to say, like, you need to change your habits, your life, what you want out of this life, the relationship you want with your family, what you want to do with your business. You need to change that to protect me.
That is what they're saying.
And that is a kind of a brutal, I don't know if it's a trend or what the word is, but it's like a signal that's like, man, that's troubling to me. That's a bigger issue, right? Mm-hmm. That isn't going to go away when this goes away, which it never will totally go away, right? No. But when the panic subsides, you know, it's going to be an issue. And the other big issue I had, I'm sure you saw this, but it's just, and we're talking about Kate Brown, we'll talk with our local jurisdictions, right? The lack of leadership and the strategies. So if someone, I mean, what an opportunity to be a strong leader, to build a name for yourself, a brand. If you're a politician, build a brand for yourself, then an opportunity like this to really show real leadership. That doesn't mean you're just going to like not close anything down. This is besides your feelings on that. But to actually get up there, and that's all in March, that's all I was looking for. I'm not a fan of Kate Brown's, didn't vote for her, never would.
Yeah.
But when she scheduled a press conference, I'm like, okay, you know what? We're going to get some answers. We're going to find out what the situation is, and we're going to deal with it. And I don't think that ever happened after a single press conference, after anything. If anything, is more questions, right? And then you look at this last one, and it's, I'm not telling you, or was it asking? I'm not asking you, I'm ordering you.
Yeah.
And to try and win. The police
are going to enforce.
Yeah, right.
And having more than 6 people in your house.
To try and win an argument.
I talked to some cops and they said, no.
Oh, they're not going to chance. Yeah. But to try and win an argument from a position of authority is the weakest way to be a leader and win an argument. You lose all credibility. You lose all, you know, by demanding, as opposed to standing up there and saying, there's an opportunity there. And again, even she would have been up there, been a leader, talked to us, worked with us, let us know, here's what we're seeing, here's why we're making these decisions. I may not have agreed with them, but I certainly would have been a little more willing to talk about it. Mm-hmm. But now, again, it's round 2. We've been through this before, and now you're going to bankrupt your state and your country. You're just going to shut it down, right? You know, Biden's going to do it in January. Well, it sounds like he's going to do it as soon as he takes office.
Hopefully not.
You know, it's sickening. It's sickening that it's come to this.
The telling is a hard thing. The ordering. I've already seen businesses that aren't going to comply.
Yeah.
And I'm making sure I'm going to support them.
Yeah.
Tan Republic, they sent emails saying they're going to be open. I don't go, I just got back from Cancun, but I am going to make a couple appointments with them just to help them.
Yeah, buy a punch card or something.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I used to own a gym here in town with a couple partners.
Just because they have the balls to do it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking to do.
And I was talking to my wife. She's like, what would you do if you still own the gym? You know, and one of my partners at the time still owns it now. And I'm like, it's a good question. I said, but I just can't imagine in that environment, knowing that general health and fitness is probably our top 2 preventative measures for what we're facing. There's also no traceable spread to gyms that I've seen anywhere, just like restaurants, just like bars. There's the common like, well, people talk louder and they drink there, so we should shut it down. But there's no proof. There's no evidence. There's no science behind it. Just like with gyms, thinking I'd keep it open. And I hit him up. Hey, what's your plan? He's like, as long as my insurance is going to keep covering me, I'm open. And they are, and he's staying open.
He has pandemic insurance?
No, like his general liability. He was concerned that maybe like they would deem it, like if something happened during this time, like an unlawful act, it was illegal for him to be open and try and weasel out of their coverage, basically. That was his concern, which I'm like, I didn't think of that. But he called them. They're good. So he's going to stay open. And, I got a lifetime membership as part of the deal I made with him when I sold.
Open.
He's going to stay open.
Okay.
Yeah. He's going to stay open.
He's going to stay. Okay. Now I get what you're saying. He's staying open. And if OSHA comes around, Cape Brown Secret Police, then the insurance would help him pay for that fine.
Yeah. Or just, again, general liability or anything like that. But, he's not going to comply. And, I'm hearing about, bars up in Portland who most of them have never gotten reopened, right? Mm-hmm. And they're saying, we're just selling booze to go. Pre-made cocktails, we're selling them to go. Mm-hmm. It's illegal. OLCC hasn't changed that law. Some thoughts, they have changed a lot of laws. They haven't changed that. And they say, what are you going to do? You're going to take my business? I'm going to lose it in 6 weeks anyway.
That's
I got nothing to lose.
That's been my standpoint on it. I mean, like the gyms, I'm like, you're going to lose it anyway.
Yeah.
Stay open. And like the churches, you're gonna, like that is a business at the end of the day. You're going to lose that shit too. Yeah. You got to pay the rent on that place, and you're not 25 people to come in. Michael Sipe, who's on the podcast live, just wrote a powerful email to all the pastors across Oregon, just saying like, stay open. It's like one of those things where you want to grab your AR and get in line. It was really good.
Well, never mind. Look, you can have your own feelings about religion, but that's also constitutionally protected. It's not the same as driving. It's not the same as a lot of things.
No, but it's the right to assemble, mm-hmm. and that right seems to keep its rightness, or whatever you want to call it, its credibility, if you're protesting the police.
Right.
And that's about it. But if you want to get together and worship God and come together as a community, they don't want you to be able to do that. They don't also, I've been noticing just like the things that this has been doing to us has been really, I think it's on purpose, but again, that's a big rabbit hole, but just making the family not be able to be together and making the family mad at each other.
Yeah. Because
this has turned into a political issue, mask or no mask, lockdown or no lockdown. It's become very, very bipartisan or partisan, mm-hmm. very, very partisan. So, and I have family members that are hard on the left, and I just can't bring this stuff up.
Even anti-vax isn't this politicized, isn't this partisan. There's more bipartisan in the anti-vaxxer movement than there is in, mask, no mask, mm-hmm. Get together, don't get together.
Yeah.
And those lines have been created. Those lines were drawn.
They want us to fight
not
each
by
other.
us.
They don't want the family to be strong anymore. And I'm just like, why are you doing it? And this isn't too much tinfoil hat time. It really isn't. There's a thing called the World Economic Forum. They get together. It's all the world leaders and billionaires, and they have created something called the Great Reset that they created back in March of 2017. They've been planning for this, and they said that coronavirus has brought this great opportunity to do the Great Reset and to reset our economy and save the world and everything like that. Google it, look it up. It's on their site. You're not going to own anything in 2030. They say there's going to be climate change is going to cause 1 billion people to be displaced. Everything's going to be rented. You're not going to be able to go anywhere. You're not going to own a home. Like it's some pretty terrifying stuff. And so I'm just like, why are you locking down our states? Like, why is California? Why are all these things locked down? I'm like, well, apparently they want to make sure that this Great Reset and being able to fix the world happens. And I know that sounds really bizarre and tinfoil, but just Google. I mean, if you could Google, Jacob, the Great Reset, the World Economic Forum, this isn't just like this is straight out in the open.
Well, and it's
so thanks for bringing that up. But yeah, there, it's 4 patients are in the ICU. 1 is on a ventilator.
Well, and you check it, not to make light of anyone passing away, but when you check at the daily report, and that daily report without fail, 87 years old, underlying conditions, 92 years old, underlying conditions, maybe 65, underlying conditions. I heard a firsthand story from someone I trust, and it was firsthand. This is not so-and-so's friend's parent. It was a family member of his, died in a motorcycle crash.
Your family's friends did?
A friend of mine. It was a family member of his. And they got a letter 2 weeks later that he died of COVID. And when stuff like that happens, and like you said, when you're talking about the World Economic Forum and all these things and the way that stories are changing and these decisions that are being made, it's pretty hard not to start buying into some conspiracy theories. Like those conspiracies start becoming much less conspiracy.
It's their goddamn plan.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to, like, I don't have a tinfoil hat on. This is the fucking plan.
Yeah.
So anyway,
but I mean, any of them, a lot of them, look at, like, knocking on, and I don't really follow it because I don't have the time, but look at, what Q has done. And yeah, some of their shit might be really far down there, but they've also nailed like several things. And so how do you not start giving a little more credibility to some of these other ideas that are a little more out there and a little more off the wall? Like I've never considered myself a conspiracy theorist, but I do challenge everything. Everything in my life I challenge.
That term conspiracy theorist was created and popularized after the JFK assassination during Operation Mockingbird by the CIA. This is all documented, true stuff. That people weren't going around saying that like conspiracy about like whether or not the Holocaust happened or not. Like that's a conspiracy, right? And that was right after, but it wasn't labeled that. The CIA wanted to create a label of conspiracy theory to discredit whoever
people were challenging.
Whenever you put conspiracy and then the next thing, just discredited.
Well, and that's what it is. If you challenge the narrative at all currently, as it sits today, if you challenge the narrative at all, you're a conspiracy theorist at best. You want people to die, you're selfish, you're all these things, except for someone that's just asking some questions.
Yeah.
And just saying, you know what? Like, and I don't know how anyone can look at this and think for themselves and not ask some questions and not see these things. This isn't partisan. Challenging what's coming down the course, is not partisan. It is just challenging what we're being force fed. And anytime like someone's trying to force feed something to me so hard, you have to step back and say, why so hard? Why is it so aggressive? Why are these things happening?
Why is it just 4 people in the ICU of COVID in our hospital here and we're forced to lock down? Seriously, and look, so don't. That's why we're not. I just like, that's the only way. What are they going to do if we just stop complying?
Well, I can tell you, so looking at it, and I'm with you. Now, on the restaurant side, Life and Time,
you got your hat.
We have complied, right? We have complied, and we will, because that's what our customers want over there.
Yeah.
But also, with restaurants, and especially at the bar. Now, our crowd at the Cricket, which, we're getting ready to open soon, well, as soon as we can, totally different crowd.
Yeah.
And they might actually be a little more embracing and supportive and might even earn a little more business by saying, nope, screw you, we're opening anyway. Right? I think
I think you'd have a lot of people come.
Here's the thing with the state.
You get fined.
Well, fines are fines, but losing a liquor license, that can just be ripped at any point for any reason. And then losing a lottery license, which is worth a lot of money, that can just be ripped at any point, any time. And then the health department shows up and fails us they could find something to fail you if they wanted to. And then what do? We sue them. But in the meantime, I don't have a license. And you can't just sell booze without a license. Now we're talking about jail time, regardless of the circumstance, right? That's just been a law forever. And it takes 18 months, 2 years, and we'll probably win. I'd like to think we would win that lawsuit and we get our license back, but at what cost in that industry? So when you look at industries,
what do you think would happen? Obviously, what you're saying is incredibly concerning from an entrepreneur standpoint. But what if you had a coalition of bar owners that also did it at the same time?
I would say, there's some conversations taking place. Mm-hmm. It's still scary. It's very scary, right?
Yeah. Again, like to the Jim point, is just like how long you're in a bit of a better. I'm putting words in my mouth, but I would imagine you're in a better financial standpoint because you successfully sold 10 barrel.
We're in a lucky position that most people aren't.
Yeah. But the restaurant and bar margins, as you know,
tiny. I don't know why anyone of us do it. If
they do exist, they're small.
I don't know why we do it.
Yeah. So to not be open. How are you supposed to, even for these restaurants, like, to go? Well, where do restaurants make most of their money, like when these come to these sit downs?
Right. It's drinks. And you know what eats into those margins real quick? People don't realize to-go packages.
Yeah.
To-go catch-ups, napkins, forks, all that stuff. Those pennies, people always ask like, well, why you don't give me 4 napkins? Those cost 2 cents a piece. And that might seem trivial, but when I just took 12 cents of profit for extra napkins, right, out of this meal, that adds up real quick,
it
right?
does.
Into what's already razor thin margins.
Yeah.
And I think, the restaurant industry as a whole, especially in Oregon, I'm guessing if we took an anonymous poll, it's probably gonna be pretty split. It's gonna be probably lean more liberal than most business sectors in the state, I would guess.
So they're for their own demise?
No, I'm not going to say that. You can say that. But I will say that I've seen a lot saying, hey, it's just 2 weeks this time around, right? Okay, it's just 2 weeks this time, and so and I'm like, what? But here's what I think. The point is, I think when this turns into, because this ain't going to be 2 weeks.
No.
I don't know when this is going to air, but we're definitely still going to be locked down.
Yeah.
All right. So
it's going past Christmas. They want to make sure we don't get together.
My prediction is March.
Holy fuck.
That's my prediction.
Well, hell, I was saying that this was going to go till like September and people thought it was crazy. And now here we are in November and I'm like, fuck, I wish I was right.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And here's why I think that. This ain't going to be 2 weeks. Because the cases aren't going to go down. They're not going to go down under this 2 week period. It's flu season. It's cold season. It's sick season.
Oh, by the way, the CDC has quietly said that they're going to stop counting influenza deaths.
COVID. Yeah. They have taken a dramatic decline, I know, up till now.
Yeah. Also, the CDC's report on Monday, their words, not mine, of the 250,000, give or take 10,000. I don't have it exactly memorized, but that many people have died from COVID. 6% of them are from COVID alone.
Right.
The rest of them had underlying conditions. 10,000 of them, poisoning. Yeah. 29,000 of them heart attack, which is not a symptom of COVID.
No, we're fractional percentage, right? And the death rate continues to go down, which is great, right? Which is awesome.
Until they make up different deaths from it, right?
And so here's what here's why I think March, because this is not going to go 2 weeks. There's zero chance. Call it 4. We're mid-December. It ain't going to come up mid-December. They're going to say, okay, let's finish out the year strong, right? Let's finish it out. We're almost there, guys. You know what? And then we'll just call 2020 a wash. It sucked. And we'll couple more weeks. Well, now we're mid-January, right? I read an article yesterday that said apparently the camp is now, there's a split camp in Biden's house as to what they want to do. But when the leader of his COVID coalition is saying 6-week nationwide lockdown will cure this, he's not saying it might be something to talk about. He's saying this will cure this. A 6-week lot, and then it lets him be the hero, right? And when all of a sudden it just disappears 6 weeks later, and that's all the prior president had to do. If he just would have been a leader and done this, we would have saved the whole year, right? It's a very great political opportunity. So now we're in March. So that's why I say March. I pray I'm wrong, but that's why I say it. But I think a couple weeks from now, this period right now, a week before Thanksgiving through New Year's, is the only chance bars and restaurants have to actually make money Q4 and Q1, half the year. That's it. This is the bread and butter. And I think a couple weeks from now, when this gets extended, I think a lot of opinions are going to turn. And people are going to realize that, maybe people that are like, hey, I'm soft on this 2 weeks. It's okay. It's just 2 weeks. We can all sacrifice a little bit more. That's going to turn.
Yeah.
And I think then we're going to have mass amounts of people. And then look, let's put it back in the consumers. Let's put it in their hands. If they get pissed at us because we want to open, I wish you didn't. I wish you'd come shop with my business. We're still the same great business we were a year and a half ago, but that's your choice. And that's a consequence of my decision as a business owner.
Absolutely.
Capitalism, free market society, the way this is supposed to be run, and decisions will be made. And then guess what? At the end of the day, if that's what happens and we're wrong and the mass amount of consumer all show that we're not shopping there and we don't support that, then a year from now, we're not going to be around. And the only people that will be around is the people they wanted to support anyway. So they win, right? It's a win-win on both sides if you let it sort itself out.
So sorting itself out of the free market.
Need more of that.
Have more of it. Yeah. I'm trying to find some, how can we get outside? So this is obviously going to affect your industry the most, gym, stuff like that. We're, going to be standing strong over here. If you have a coalition of bar owners and restaurants, this is all hypothetical stuff. But if you had the coalition, let's say you had 60% of restaurants and bars in town that in Central Oregon that are like, yeah, we're going to stay open. And you play that out, and then OLCC comes around and they take away, let's just say they take away all your guys' liquor licenses. Okay. What's the next step if you kept on serving? Would it be you getting arrested by police at night?
Yeah, well, technically liquor stores couldn't sell us booze. So which is fine. We get like a tiny little discount. It's single digit discount, but so we lose that discount. So we had to go in privately and buy it, right? Which they couldn't knowingly. It's like a straw purchase, right? They couldn't knowingly sell it to us, puts them in jeopardy. But so we figure that we send 20 employees in, they each buy 10 bottles a week, right? We go to the wholesaler, we each buy a couple kegs, whatever. At that point, we are breaking civil law, and the police could justifiably show up and put us in handcuffs if they would.
That's the big question I have. Would they? I would, and that's a big risk that you think of. But if you have enough people, if you had 60% of the bars in Central Oregon and restaurants, what do you think that is? Roughly 300?
Yeah. I want to say there's. Well, I don't know about Central Oregon. I think Bend. I think we have something like 400 licenses.
Yeah. So if you add all Central Oregon, it'd probably end up being a 60% of that. Let's call it 300. And those 300 people are the owners and whatnot. They are members of the community, and they have family and friends. And who else is members of the community is the police, who have family and friends.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, at once, you're asking the police to go out and start arresting their family and friends all at once for doing something that, let's say it's 50-50 right now as far as for lockdown and against. I really don't know what it is in Central Oregon.
I can't imagine it's 50-50.
I can imagine it is, but let's just say it was. And in the police force, let's say that was 50-50. So you have half the people not wanting to do what the other half do. That's going to create some. And in the police force, I mean, you'd have to be realistic and being like, it wouldn't be 50-50 on who would want to do it and who wouldn't. Just from who police typically are, that they're typically from more conservative backgrounds. It's a bummer that this has to be a conversation this kind of like to, it doesn't have to be, but to have this kind of conversation, this kind of a point. But I don't see if we don't stand up for our liberty, us keeping it.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the scary thing.
And a year ago, people could justifiably say, you're paranoid, nothing's going on. That's unrealistic.
Sure.
But I think in today, not today's day and age, today, no one can look you in the eye after making a statement like that and say, you're out of your mind.
No.
And that's the tragic part about this whole thing is that, those
going deep,
those thoughts, and again, it's no longer a conspiracy.
It's no longer that our whiskey's racist too. Fucking Jefferson whiskey.
Oh, that's damn good whiskey though.
It is.
They can do no
racist,
wrong.
Damn good whiskey.
But
wow, I poured you a stiff glass.
I know, and we'll see how worked up we get. Right, it could last the rest of it. I might need one more. I don't know what to figure it out. But It's tragic that that's where we're at. And it's also a very realistic conversation because you can, I guess, choose to not believe that this is long lasting. Mm-hmm. You can make that argument, but you cannot argue.
Has been long lasting.
100%. But I mean,
right. You're like,
let's say
it's
for
not
forever,
going to last long.
for forever, for our lifetime.
Is that what we negotiate our liberty to? Well, it won't be like this for forever.
And that's what I'm saying is
forever acceptable? Is a day acceptable? Like, give me liberty or give me death?
Right.
Thou who sacrifices liberty for security shall get neither liberty nor security. Benjamin Franklin. Like, these are all founding principles of our Constitution, which the Democrats have been wiping their ass with. And so, you're saying, oh, sorry. You're saying so forever.
What it's going to take is someone who's going to be the first one to burn the boats. Since we're talking about those guys, right? Who's going to be the first one to burn the boats? That's what everyone's waiting for.
I think the churches.
It would make sense. Right? It would.
I hope they do.
And But yeah, what you circling back, what you cannot argue that we're not losing liberties. You cannot make that argument. If you try to make that argument, and you can try and justify why we are.
Yeah.
That you can do.
Sure.
I won't, but you can.
Yeah.
But you cannot say we're not losing liberties damn near daily at this point. And the fact that that is realistic, right, is again another tragedy that if we're not very, very, very careful, right, because these things don't ever roll back. Nothing ever rolls back. No one gives power back. No one gives money back. No one gives power back. It's just not the way it works.
Remember when you had to take off your shoes at the airport after 9/11?
Right, just for a little while.
Still taking your shoes off at the airport and sometimes your pants. I've had to take off my pants before.
Yeah, how was it?
It sucked. I mean, I didn't even get anything beneficial out of it.
It's worth asking.
Yeah. But like all that, so like I just went through when I was coming back from my surgery in Mexico in a wheelchair at Denver in Cancun. They let me wheel right through and everything. Like, oh yeah, don't worry about this, guy. This will be fine. In Denver, they made me stand up and pat me down, and I'll scan the shit out of my wheelchair because I could have a wheelchair bomb. Right. So yeah, no. To your point, that liberty we had of just not having our private parts touched has been gone.
Well, it's an erosion. It's an erosion of liberties, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't all happen at once. Now, 9/11, that changed travel forever all at once. And this, I think, if you look at things in terms of a year, in the grand scheme, that's kind of all at once too. But it is a very slippery slope that it's not going to peel back, if we're not very, very careful. And
slippery slope, by the way, is house arrest.
For having your family there.
Yeah. Well, no, it's just house arrest, period.
Right. Yeah.
Just because that's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And like, oh no, just stay home and everything. We got to remember that house arrest is one of the ways that we punish criminals.
Yeah.
Put a bracelet on them and everything.
Well, okay,
so
think about this.
Criminals.
Think about this. We want to get deeper into following the money. Not that we're following the money, but following the money.
Well, that's what controls the world.
So let's look at this. Let's look at bars and restaurants. Some extra familiar with. I'm really lucky. I've got one landlord who's awesome. He is incredible. And he's also smart. Mm-hmm. And he sees the future and knows that, man, if I squeeze these guys now, I'd rather have a tenant for 10 years than get rent for 3 months, right? I've got one that's total opposite. But we're being ordered. You cannot make money.
Yeah.
Period. You can't make money. And now look, don't twist this around. I don't want the government involved in anything. I don't want them involved. We're way past that though, right?
Oh yeah.
So you can't make money. But did I miss the part where they then went to say commercial tenants and said, listen, or commercial landlords and said, you got to give a forgiveness on rent. They can't make money. You don't get to make money. We're all in this together. And then that's going to hurt too. And that's going to piss a lot of people off. Unless they also then go to the banks and say, hey, no principal payments on commercial mortgages while they're shut down. Mm-hmm. Okay. Look, just go to interest only. Don't go to zero. Go to interest only. Something like that, right? Go to the banks and say, okay, here's how we're going to do this. All these businesses are shut down. So we're all going to share it because I'm on the hook.
Yeah.
100%. Mm-hmm. And all these restaurants across the state and the country, not all of them. Even just having to dump inventory and rebuy it is going to bury some guys, especially now, the second time around. Mm-hmm. And don't tell me they can get creative and go to go. That's bullshit. Some can. We've got a drive-through. We're convenience based. We're going to be okay at Life and Time. Vita is also kind of convenience based, but without that drive-through, it's a much, much tougher challenge.
Yeah.
We may end up shutting it. We're going to make a run. We got some, and we fortunately have had this plan for a while. We're going to try to do some family style meals and some business catering and do whatever we can, right? But we may end up shutting it down. But you don't tell me like, oh, to go is fine. People are still going to eat out, because they're not. Because what happens when our leadership tells us these things and the numbers are this and we're all dying, consumer confidence goes to zero. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we can't make money.
But there is people that aren't believing that now.
But if we didn't,
you and I are proof of that.
Yeah. But if you didn't have to pay rent,
yeah,
that in and of itself could save probably 80% of businesses that we will lose during the second round of closures.
The problem is that if you did that, if you followed the money and you told the banks to not have, just have interest, I think this is going to happen eventually, but we would have a pretty severe and immediate financial collapse, because the banking is basically fractional reserve lending is just where you give the bank $100 and say, put it in my checking account, and they say, okay, and by law, and they don't, but by law, they just have to keep $1 from that $10.
Right.
And the $9 they lend out into mortgages. And then they depend on those mortgages, being commercial or real estate, on being paid back to them every month. And all they have, if you came up saying, I want my money, is $1 of that 10 at any point in time. And the FDIC, which insures that, which is you're insured up to $200,000
per account.
Per account. That is a phony insurance. It is funded by the government for $78 billion. The amount that's in checking and savings accounts is 5 trillion.
Yeah.
So if everybody went and said, I want my money, you get 70 cents for every $100 you have in there, because they just simply don't have it.
Till it's gone.
Yeah, exactly. So all of a sudden these banks aren't making the commercial, the main way they get money, which is from these loan repayments from their mortgages.
Right.
And that's gone. And then if some people start getting spooked, they start pulling money out of the bank and they want to put it in gold and silver or just put it under their mattress. And then you have a bank run like in the Great Depression. And so it's just like, I would
You're not wrong, but at this point, why don't we just get that shit out of the way now?
Because bank run? Listen, I'm down for the banks to collapse. I'm prepared for it.
Yeah, I certainly don't want it to happen, but okay, let's look at the slow play. Businesses start shutting down. Then what happens? Well, best case scenario, someone can move their family in with their parents. Best case scenario, right? Walk away from their mortgage. They're now bankrupt, credit's gone. That house, we've got another housing depression coming, right?
Yeah.
But this time for real. This time not because one state or any, all the factors, because we've already been giving out, stated income mortgages. They're giving loans like they used, like they were back in the day, right before the last collapse.
Yeah. I mean, it's about to go to negative interest. It's insane.
Right.
Yeah.
And then now we have an entire class of people that just can't pay, but this time actually can't pay. Not like, last time, unfortunately, I knew several people are like, I'm just walking away. It's upside down. I'll get forgiven. Give it a few years. Put the next one in my wife's name. It's fine. Because it became morally acceptable.
Sure.
But now it's for real. And so there's all of a sudden, now we have a glut of houses. And now it's just a matter of time until that collapse, that reworking happens anyway. If we get down this path, this can all be stopped.
By opening up.
By making money. Right. Yeah. I mean, by opening up, right? Mm-hmm. I think one of the smartest things that I just don't know how anyone could argue with, other than the fact that Trump said it, but the solution can't be worse than the disease.
Absolutely, and it totally is. The amount of, just to speak personally, to say I haven't gone through areas of depression during this when I normally am a very happy person is a lie. Like, this has been incredibly hard on my psyche, especially in March and April. Just being locked down, trying to keep Mazama alive, and having to let people go that wouldn't have been let go, and cutting all these sort of costs to make it happen. Like, that was insane. And I know that I'm not alone on like an employee level, because there's a lot of employees that are being let go, and then the employees that aren't, it's like, well, when will I? And that's an incredible strain. Mm-hmm. And so that ends up going into like where you have an entire generation that's getting hooked on antidepressant medication, anxiety medication, benzos, all kinds of sort of shit. Really great for big pharma.
How about this? I got a 7-year-old daughter at home who's required to spend 4 hours a day on an iPad for school.
Well, you're supposed to do that, dude, because you're supposed to. You're supposed to teach your kids and run your businesses and keep your mask on all at the same time.
Yeah,
that's what you need to do as a good American. Come on now, Garrett. Yeah. But that's a whole nother goddamn can of worms that really pisses me off, dude. The school thing. I don't even have kids, and I've been beyond furious about it. I don't even have them.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, watching these managers, you're like, okay, 10 people per 100,000. Then they loosened it to 30. Mm-hmm. I was just like, we're never going to hit this. Okay.
Well, and tell me that wasn't a strategic timing on that press conference. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Because then the couple.
I mean, it was the data was already there. We knew the season. Things were changing already. Like that was the most feel good announcement. That's what, my wife got really excited. Like, hey, as of right now, we're going to hit it. I'm like, yeah, we have to do it for 2 more weeks. And it's September. It's mid-September. And this is not, it's not going to happen.
Are private schools able to be open in Oregon?
I know that I don't know that if they were closed, they could open now, but I know they all had a window reopen. And I think at least in Central Oregon, all the ones I know of are open.
Yeah. It'd be a good time to open a private school.
Sure would.
Because I know there's plenty of parents. What was the bullshit that was going on or it's still going on where like daycare in our schools is a thing that you can pay for?
It's still going on.
Yeah.
So not long after schools were shut down, they announced that they were going to rent. Well, I don't know about renting, and I believe it was Park and Rec that was actually hosting the daycare, I think. But that, so for $200 a week, you could send your kid to the school and pay and have them watched by someone for daycare. And there were scholarships available and things like that.
Yeah, whatever.
But they could go.
It's the same concept as school.
Right.
Last time I checked.
School.
Yeah. But you have people going into a building that can then turn them into super spreaders.
Well, and that was the argument. And I heard a lot, like bars shouldn't be open when schools are closed. I'm like, I totally agree. We should open these schools. We should have done it months ago. Mm-hmm. There's no argument to be made, and people are the long-term effects of these kids being out of school is going to be tragic. So again, my oldest she's about to turn 8. I've got 3 kids. The 2 boys are in preschool, which by the way, it did shut down for, I don't know, a couple, 6 weeks or so there, but they've been open. Mm-hmm. They've been open, which they should be.
Yeah.
They've been open. So daycare's open, park and rec activities are open, schools are closed. I'm not going to draw the one X factor in between there, but it is what it is. But when you look at the long-term detrimental effects, for starters, there's a reason that until the day he died, Steve Jobs would not let his children use an iPad or an iPhone. They're not good. They're not good for developing minds. Mm-hmm. They're not good. Now, they're very useful tools for us. We probably all spend way too much time on it. I know I'm on my phone way too much,
Yeah.
And I've been reading a lot about the downside of that, so I'm working on it. I'm monitoring my screen time daily, What
are you reading?
But I'm trying to remember that. I knew you were going to ask, and I'm actually reading it right now.
Is it Simon Sinek by any chance?
No, I want to say it's Jonathan Haidt. Okay. Haidt, I think is the last name. I think it's Jonathan.
I'm not familiar. Is it a study on just like
it's phone just usage? It's about technology, screen time, phone usage.
Does he talk about the dopamine hits that you get from?
Yeah, but it's all about the addictive principles of it.
Yeah.
And that's actually where I read it in the prologue. He's like, there's a reason Steve Jobs never let his children do this, right? There's a reason like that Jack Ma won't let his kids on Twitter. There's a reason all these things happen, right? And so, but here we are forcing the youngest and most vulnerable of the developing minds, is 7, 8, 9-year-olds, forcing them onto an iPad. And then, I checked the other day and my daughter was playing a game. I'm like, hey, I ran home during the day to go grab something, and I'm like, what are you doing? We're supposed to be doing school. Oh, it's a learning game.
Yeah, they're all playing learning games.
It's a game. It's a math game.
Yeah. And the teachers are just like, who's at level 8? Yeah. Who's at level? Yeah, my girlfriend's a teacher, just saying like, I'm just like listening to her teach like virtually. Just like, all right, who got to level 9? I didn't say anything. I was like, what the fuck?
And she was doing math, but it's a game and there's characters. I'm like, this is what addicts them, the bright colors and the characters and all these things.
Gamification.
And then you look at the lack of socialization, which is really, I don't care what anyone tells me. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, probably until high school.
Well, I think we all remember being in middle school or high school and that kid that came in after being homeschooled until that point in time.
Right.
That kid was pointing out like a sore thumb.
Right.
He just socially wasn't there. Right. We're creating a generation of that.
Yeah. Because, there's no socialization.
No.
Right, we're losing sports. When I was in high school, if I didn't have sports, if I didn't get the grades, I couldn't play. If I got an MIP or I got in trouble, I couldn't play. Guess what me and my friends were doing? Sure shit weren't showing up to time on class, right? We weren't not going out drinking on weekends. Mm-hmm. We weren't causing trouble and raising hell. Like, we all kind of have that, maybe not all of us, but, that genetic trait to do, right? There was that motivation. That's gone. Mm-hmm. I know, and I don't remember exact numbers, but I know in the last 8 months, suicide is up and it's only going to get worse. Depression is skyrocketed, right? Which means, again, addiction to pills. Mm-hmm. It's just... There's so many nuances that are ignored by so much of the argument. Like they're left out of the argument. It's like it's cut and dry. Oh, these are the case numbers, which are always changing. These are the death rates, which are always changing. Of course, we're never comparing them to how many people die every year anyway, but they're always changing. The numbers are changing, but no one ever says, but.
Well, the deaths were, there's no buts. The deaths have plummeted even with the new ways of them sneaking them in and everything like that. But we used to always judge all of our pandemics and epidemics off of deaths, not cases.
Right.
But this one is cases surging. All the CNN, MSNBC, even Fox News now, all the headlines are cases surging. Like, oh, what about this? Oh, no, that's not really happening. And then do you remember when Sweden did the no lockdown thing? And then they went through the predictable graph up. Could you, let's see, what's the site? If you Google coronavirus statistics, world meters, I believe, is the second or third one that comes up that I'm familiar with. And if you scroll to Sweden and show their cases rate, I'd be interested to see that, especially with what's going on right now. The last time I looked at it was about a month ago. So basically you had the predictable in March and April when they're like, we're not locking down. We're just going to depend on our society to kind of be smart about this and, social distance, everything like that. Huge surge. Media saying, look at Sweden, look at this plan falling apart. Holy crap, look at that. It's the worst, right? Then it plummeted and the media didn't talk about it at all. Nothing from mainstream media about how successful the non-lockdowns were. Why is that?
Doesn't fit the narrative.
No, it doesn't. Like
peace and safety doesn't sell.
And now Florida has done the same thing. So here we have Sweden. If you click on Sweden, Jacob, and then if you scroll down to, keep going. Yeah, so keep going to daily new cases. All right, so it's now it's that the skyrocket is interesting.
Well, but again, it's the same skyrocket as everyone else. So it's not any worse than anyone else. And it's the season. It's the fall. It's winter.
But okay, so when they first ended up doing it, the skyrocket, so they decided not to lock down in March and it started going up and then everybody was saying it and then it plummeted while everybody else was going up. And now it's skyrocketed, but everybody else that's the part of this where I'm just having a hard time.
Well, and that means from here to here, even if they lock down now, they had an entire year of normalcy. Some people got sick. Some things happened, but...
Keep scrolling down. Can we look at the deaths? Yeah, that looks more right on what's going on. Again, deaths, not cases. Okay, cool. So that's a linear graph, and we see a little bit of an uptick, but look at that thing. It flatlined hard. So this was...
And even this, the spike in cases...
Yeah, so this is... the media pointing at Sweden saying a bunch of dumb fucks. And then this was the herd immunity.
Right.
So if you scroll down, Jacob, you can look at that. Yeah. So there we go. So as what's going on now, I wouldn't be surprised since the whole world is getting on board. It's getting incredibly draconian in Chile and Europe, where there's people, protesting these lockdowns and stuff like that. In France, UK, Chile has just become a draconian. People just taking for what it is. This is a global phenomenon, basically. And so if we're going through the CDC saying that, and that's our Center of Disease Control, it's not a global thing. But if we're going through ours saying that 10,000 people died of poisoning, but they're COVID deaths, something tells me some people in Sweden that drank too much bleach or decided to eat all the Ambien.
Right.
Probably are part of that spike that's happening right there.
Yeah. Well, and we can't stop the world from turning because people are getting sick. We just can't. I mean, again, if the death rate was, I don't know what, not that there's acceptable, but 1%, 5%, 10%, okay. I think if it was 10%, we'd all be like, okay,
yeah,
this is different.
Yeah.
This is some shit we got to figure out, and we got to drastically change our life, right?
Instead, it's like a 99.95.
It's a hyper contagious flu at this point.
Yeah, and it sounds gnarly. Like, I don't want it. Like, I'm doing my best to, like, I am taking vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc every day, and I'm not like, I don't have a concert I could run into. But if I did, I'd probably still go because I really miss live music. And that's my choice.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, but I'm doing the thing. But it's just like, hey, we've lived with this thing for 7-8 months, and it's not like it's not like, there's videos I saw in Iran of like, they were just like showing a guy falling over and dying on the sidewalk. There was a bunch of those in Iran and China and stuff like this in February and in January leading up to ours. And I was sitting around going, holy fucking shit, guys.
Yeah, it's a cleansing. Like, this is bad.
This is real bad. Yeah. And that's why I like shut down this office before Kate Brownsville. So I was just like, everybody work from home. We're figuring this shit out. I do not want this whole office dying. And then, I'm like, okay, it's a disease. It ain't people dying on the sidewalk and like bring out your dead, the Monty Python skit, like going through all the neighborhoods and people being thrown up on there. Could you pull up Florida? I'm curious to see Florida, those same graphs. Because they pulled Sweden. And the last time I looked at it, it was a couple of weeks ago, but it's still...
Texas too. Hey, what's funny is...
Texas pulled Sweden?
Yeah.
Good for them.
They, there's interesting dynamic. Of course, there's very interesting dynamics in Texas.
You have Austin and the rest of Texas.
But like, Austin was gonna lock things down again, and Governor Abbott said, okay, you don't get property tax money.
Ooh.
I have the authority to do that. Power of the purse.
Yeah.
But, like, I know there's been a spike in Texas and there's been a spike in California. Difference is, Texas has been open, California's been locked down. They're both still getting a spike. It's almost like we're not really in control. Like, we should just live our lives, protect those that need protected, make our own individual choices. Because the results, what I've seen, are fairly similar.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I mean, we did this lockdown. It didn't really work. Can you go down to, because I've just learned to fuck the cases. Can we go down to the deaths? Yeah, there you go. So, what date do you think do you know what date they opened? So like September? Can you Google on another tab what day Florida opened? I want to say it was the beginning of September. Maybe beginning
Sounds
of October.
About right, somewhere in there.
September, yeah. October. But I mean, the media would be having a field day if they're hospital. September 25th. So you have the 2-week gestation period, and we're
just gone through this.
Yeah,
we opened here, and it just keeps going down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What the fuck are we doing?
Well, it has nothing to do with power, control, or liberties. For sure.
No, definitely not.
Okay, here's the question, though. So, knowing what we know, or I think more importantly, knowing what we don't know for real, what is the solution? I mean, there's so many. Is there... Obviously, we've both of us have spent the last, call it a year at this point, navigating the waters, protecting the ship, finding a way to make it through, no matter what.
Right.
We've got a plan. We're gonna be okay, I think, as it sits today, right? Unless things change, because I'm not convinced that a national mandated shutdown, which. I digress, but I have to. I put this out on my socials a couple days ago. I said, all right, don't care if you're a fan or not a fan, but Trump, the people who like to pound on Trump, he didn't do enough. Yeah. Terrible response. It's his fault. What would you have liked to have done? Mm-hmm. And of course, I got a lot of like, you didn't do anything wrong. Someone finally said, well, a national lockdown. I was like, perfect. Someone took the bait. Said, absolutely false. Because if he would have done that, my personal opinion, would have called him a hypocritical piece of shit. And if Biden does the same thing, I'll just skip the hypocritical and call him a piece of shit. Yeah. Because that is what banana republics do. That is what third world countries do. That is what dictators do. That is not what American presidents do. Mm-hmm. I actually, in all honesty, was a fan of Trump's response to the virus in general, which was, here's what we know. And this came out, a few months back, where he downplayed it in February. That's what good leaders do. Yeah. They keep people calm. Yeah. They don't incite panic. You want your president
coming up being like, run for the hills?
They don't incite panic, right?
And maybe you knew there wasn't a reason to run for the hills. Maybe you're like, hey, this is this is bad, but this isn't.
But what you don't do, and imagine if it happens, there's going to be a corn farmer in Iowa walking out of his house one day being like, wait, what? I'm not supposed to be out here farming my corn? Small towns all over the country, people all over the country with no cases going, wait a minute, what? Me too? Not here though, right? Because it's not an issue here, and we're separated, and we were just running our ranches, and we're keeping people fed, and we're feeding the country, and we're doing all these things, powering the country. And so I was not surprised someone kind of took the bait, but it's just like, if that's the issue and that's what you want something to do, that is a divide that I can't bridge. I can't bridge that gap. I can't ever come to an understanding of giving anyone the power of a national shutdown. It's bad enough that it's statewide, I think, right? I mean, this should be county by county, if not city by city. Local jurisdiction should hold the power. That's the way it's supposed to go. And that's where we have the most control. Now, it doesn't mean we have all the control, but we have the most. And that's the way it's supposed to be.
Do you have a line in the sand when it comes to living in Oregon?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's been crossed.
Okay.
Yeah, there's plans in place.
Okay. So, I would say mine's been crossed too, but I think it's still salvageable. I hope. We'll see what happens. It's amazing how many people are moving. It's not. I get why people are moving to Bend.
Of course.
Because when you have Portland completely shut down, like we were kind of open, right? We were pretty much open, but you had to wear masks and everything.
Well, City Council did shut down travel. They banned travel here for most of the year, remember?
Yeah, I laughed at I couldn't, I was just like, are you really going to enforce this?
We are strongly suggesting people do not travel here.
Yeah, they suggested hotels. Yeah. I was just like, that was the biggest laughable piece of, anyway. But that's a good example of like, if the people don't do it, what are they going to do in enough numbers? That's where I was going in the beginning of our conversation. Like, if you get the majority of the bars, because the hotels didn't.
Right.
They obviously kept on doing it. But you have these threats, but as the saying goes, nothing is as bad as you think, and nothing is as good as you think.
Right.
Somewhere in the middle. So that's why I would have a hard time thinking that they would come and take all of your license. One. Yep.
Right.
All? No, that would be a state. It's just.
Well, you'd sure like to think they'd look at it and be like, okay, we're wrong. We're off.
Yeah.
Our people, our constituents are telling us we're wrong.
Yeah.
We need to reevaluate. Well, that's what you'd like to think.
Well, if they don't, then what ends up happening is you have civil unrest.
Yeah.
This kind of shit leads to revolution. You end up making people hungry because they can't feed their families because you're shutting them down.
Right.
They revolt.
Yeah.
That's how 92, it's in the 90% of revolutions in human history are by hunger and famine. And so if you lock down businesses and they can't make money and then you can't buy food, what do you think is going to happen? Like when a bar owner and a restaurant owner and a gym owner, and then the companies that support them, marketing, legal, CPAs, all that sort of stuff. Like, this isn't just them. No, the landlords end up controlling that.
Trucking.
Distribution. Yeah, exactly.
The entire network. Sales.
People think it's just the restaurant industry. Yeah. I'm like, whoa. I mean, it's tourism to a town.
Yeah.
Like, I used to love, like, what are you going to, well, I'm going to go to Bend and ski at Bachelor. Cool. Until they shut that down.
Right.
But, okay, so in the summer, I'm going to go to Bend and go on some hikes. Cool. And then eat nowhere. It starts to lose its allure, right? Because the hike lasts, 4 to 8 hours of your day, or the mountain bike ride, or wherever you do.
That's our breweries, and then after that, our bars.
Yeah, exactly.
Our nightlife.
That's a part of the allure. Like, you could go and have a great mountain bike ride in Baker City. Not a lot of people go and make the pilgrimage because there's not a lot to do after you're done with that epic mountain bike. It's epic, don't get me wrong, but there is like 2 bars after.
Yep.
So it's a huge ripple effect, and I thought we were going to see it a lot more than Bend did. The reverse ended up happening because we were staying open till our 10 p.m. curfew, which is ridiculous. I guess coronavirus really spreads at 10 o'clock.
It's like a gremlin.
Yeah, 10 o'clock, they just fucking come out of the woodwork. Can you imagine if that was actually real? Can you imagine? Like at 9:55, people would be like, "Get the fuck out of there!" It'd be a scramble for the door. But so that didn't happen, and the X factor that, because I thought that we were screwed as a town, the X factor that I didn't bring into consideration was that California, Washington, and the rest of Oregon would be locked down so hard that everybody else would be escaping to us.
They fled California and Seattle especially.
And I couldn't blame them. I mean, I'm not stoked about it, but if I were them, I'd do the same thing.
No, and I think I want to say I remember seeing that the August tourism numbers were up year over year.
I'm sure they were.
And as someone that makes most of my money in the hospitality industry, I was grateful for it.
Yeah.
It was great.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also kind of going, okay, what is going on here? What is really going on? This is being said, we're being told this, but I'm driving through town and it's taking me 20 minutes to get anywhere. And, what is really going on? And then you look at our housing market, for God's sakes.
It's out of control.
Look, I'm third generation Oregonian, Central Oregonian. My great grandfather was a general project manager for Scanlon on the mills, and that's why the idea of leaving here is really disheartening.
Yeah,
and hard. But you look at what's happening and just the decision making and the support that it gets, that's what's hard for me, right? And now I'm looking at it like my wife and I were talking last night. Our middle child, my oldest son, he's supposed to start school next year, right? Now, this is September, so we've got a ways. But she made the comment like, well, hopefully he starts school next year. And I said, I assure you, he will start school next year.
Somewhere.
Mm-hmm. That's not an option. That is way past the breaking point.
Yeah.
And it's devastating for us because I always imagined growing up here, again, being third generation. My dad was a business owner here. His mom, was a checker at Safeway in Redmond for 32 years. She was the front page of the bulletin the day she retired, was a staple as a grocery clerk. And having a name that kind of carries here and has been here for a long time. And I always imagine then we'd hand that off to our kids and they do the same thing. I'd make my mark and they get the chance to do theirs. So the idea of leaving sucks, but what sucks way more than that is just bending over and folding over. And, we've already seen it's appearing that we can't vote decisions that align, and that's fine. That's the power of the people. This is how it works. I'm not mad about it. I'm bummed, but it gets to the point where you just say, okay, one of the best traits of a good fighter is knowing when to run. It's not always just the coward's way out. It's just it's a trait you have to have. And so we're looking at that, but it's hard. I'm deeply ingrained. I've got 6 businesses in this town. I love this town. My, heart and soul and blood is in this town.
Yeah.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
And, but we can't just sit by. So I think, but you're right. Okay. So what do we have? Do we have an upcoming moment where we're burning the boats? Someone who's going to do it first? We burn the boats and the bridge doesn't get crossed, and we stand and fight. And this is not about fighting for conservatives and Republicans or Democrats and liberals. This is about fighting for liberties and rights.
Yeah.
And it sounds into the day and age of Facebook and Twitter and technology and Grubhub and food delivery services that sounds ridiculous to it. Well, it used to sound ridiculous to say that.
Yeah. But
But you can't call me ridiculous for saying that now. You can't.
No.
No,
I do know. It's depressing. It's like you said, you can't debate that our liberties that we have the same amount. I mean, you're supposed to not leave your house as of tomorrow.
Right.
Right.
I'm supposed to not have. I've got a family of 5.
Yeah.
So either my mom can come over or my mother-in-law can come over, but anyone other than that.
I hope you have the biggest Thanksgiving ever.
We're not going to have a small Thanksgiving.
Good for you.
I got a 22-pound turkey. I like cooking big turkeys.
That's a lot of turkey for you and just 6 people.
Yeah. I assure you, the 6 of us will eat that. And yeah. We're gonna and you'd mentioned your grandma. My mom has some underlying conditions as well. And in the beginning, I was like, listen, stay home.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get your groceries. Let's figure this out. But as kind of we learn more and we learn more. And
did she want to stay home anymore?
No, not anymore. Oh, absolutely not.
This should be her decision, right?
But she's
her own person.
Yeah, but in the beginning, it was like she'd come over and drop things in the driveway for the kids, her grandkids, and then she'd step back and they'd come out and they'd say, "We love you, Nana. Like, thank you," and she'd talk and they'd cry. She'd cry because she couldn't come give them hugs, and then she'd leave.
Yeah.
And then we learned more and we continue to learn more and learn more. And now she's the one like, listen, first of all, what's the point of sticking around?
Yeah.
If I'm just going to do this,
Yeah.
What's the juice has to be worth the squeeze. So, and now she's like, I'll be damned if we're not doing Thanksgiving. We're a little careful around her and she's a little careful just in general.
Sure.
But she's like, I'm going to live my life.
Yeah, and so the interesting thing on that too is that when this thing was getting going and I was all pro shutdown, holy shit, Italy's going to happen here, this is going to be gnarly, let's save as many lives as we can, and then started living with it and realizing, okay, it's not as bad. So I went from bleaching anything that came from Amazon, like all the boxes.
Spraying your boxes.
Oh, yeah, I had a whole fucking thing. I didn't go grocery shopping for like a month. Like I was fully on board and this is going to kill us all sort of thing. To not bleaching my boxes, to going to the store, to living my life as normal as I can right now. And so as I was going through that transition, I was going from like everything needs to be locked down to no, not everything, to we just need to make sure we protect the elderly. So I was just like, we just have to make sure we do a lockdown on nursing homes, stuff like that, which sounds reasonable. But then somebody brought up the point to me it was okay, but do the people in the old folks home want to be locked down?
Right.
And I thought about that and I was like, it's a good question. Let's find out. And turns out through polling, I forgot what it was, but they don't. And I remember visiting my grandfather in an old folks home in Chicago. The highlight of his fucking month was when we came and saw him.
Right.
Everything, besides that, it's just the worst.
Doom, gloom,
and he was in a good
sadness and depression.
He was in a good one too. And I've been in some bad ones. Like that is the highlight. And so I've seen these images of like grandparents in old folks homes, like at windows with other ones just like crying because they can't see them. And it's just like, would they rather risk it to be able to hug their kids? I know my mom did. I know my grandma wants to. So at that point, I was like, who am I to say that we should lock down? How can I dictate that?
Right.
I'm not them.
Shouldn't be anyone's choice except theirs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, so now capitalism comes into play. You have lockdown nursing homes and you have open nursing homes. And whichever one the people want to vote with their wallets, they go to.
That's where they'll go.
And as time goes on, those lockdown nursing homes would probably become more and more open because they're losing so many clients because they want to see their family and it's not worth it. It's a crazy concept. I know. Free markets.
Personal responsibility, decision-making, accountability.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people are stuck to refusing to change their mind. I was just thinking, I remember there was a pretty good
I've been made fun of
Facebook
for
thread that there was the video you posted, and some guy jumped in like, that's not what you were saying 2 weeks ago, or and you're like, you're right.
Yeah.
100% it wasn't.
Yeah.
But now I know this, and I'd like to think you would look at it like that too. But I think that is a thing too. Like a lot of people are just like, if I change my mind, I lose.
Yeah, flip-flop.
If I open my mind to new ideas, I lose. And that's just infuriating too. It's like, what if I told you could do both?
Yeah.
What if I told you could have opinions, but you could change them?
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be wrong for either of them. It wouldn't make your prior ones unjustified or wrong, and it wouldn't make you wrong now.
I've been monetarily successful due to the fact that I make decisions fast and then change them.
Right. I think most
seriously
business owners are.
Yeah. Like it's the entrepreneurs that can't make a decision and end up failing because they need to. So I'll make decisions that are wrong. The data comes in and then re-steer the ship.
Oh yeah. We asked a question on a different podcast about hunting. I was with John Nosler, my hunting partner, best friend, and said like,
is that like the son of Nosler, or the
grandson
Nosler?
Of the John Nosler, son of Bob Nosler, third generation, and but it came up and we were talking about kind of styles, and my style is charge. And John's aggressive too, but he's a little more calculated aggressiveness, and I'm like, let's fucking go. And it was talking about the guy asked, like, does that ever not work out? I'm like, all the time. I have to turn around and say, damn, that was a terrible plan. That's my bad. All the time. Yeah. And that's just in life in general. It all works out that way, but charge. But then just don't hesitate to stop. Be like, whoa, bad idea. Yeah. New plan.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Got a new idea.
Yeah.
And it's the same with this. Roll and adapt.
Yeah. So for you and I being entrepreneurs, I think it's pretty easy for us to be able to change our mind. But for people that aren't used to that, not everybody's like that, and that's fine. So I could see where the hesitance come, like, well, I was for this, and that's the way it is, and that's what I've been saying. I've been saying to my family, my friends, everything like that. I mean, I've been ridiculed by my family, a few members of my family for the 180. Like, I made fun of it, and I'm just like, yeah, I did. And if another strain comes out and it ends up killing 10% of people, I'll
change it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as of right now,
no shame in that.
Yeah. I don't know. It's too bad though, because I do think deep down, I do know a few liberals who, because you know how we were talking about this has become very partisan.
Yeah.
I do know some liberals who are still politically liberal, but they have become lockdown conservative. And they're like, I don't want that to confuse me. They're really saying, I don't want that to confuse me with my liberal, because I'm still for that, but I don't think these lockdowns are necessary. Yeah. I was just like, you can like think of different things.
And you can do that.
It's totally been stamped freaking liberal and conservative, this lockdown stuff. And so I have a couple of liberal friends. I literally said, like, I just don't want to like, hey, there's the other things. I just don't want my support on that. They're saying to like lose the good of the fight or the other things I'm going for. I was just like, dude, you can be like pro-gun and freedom of choice,
right?
Like, or choice, right? Pro-abortion, whatever. Like you can mix and match things. You just don't have to sign up for the whole thing. In any aspect of life.
Well, that's what created such partisan divide, is that Trump was no lockdown. Mm-hmm. It is. And so it automatically became like anti that. Pro this, anti that. He's pro it. That means we got to be against it. I mean,
orange man bad.
I'd like to think, you looking at it, you got to assume that's the reason, right? There's not some actual underlying intellectual reason why it became a partisan divide. There has to be that.
Yeah. No, my mind was blown by, when he said there's a lot of promise and everything from hydroxychloroquine, and that just became, it became so bad.
And like one idiot drank fish cleaner or something, like one person, and that's all you heard about.
Yeah. But the hydroxychloroquine thing, there's actually a lot to that. And I ended up going like deep down the research of that. And I was finding that if you look at Nigeria, Indonesia, India, and a lot of South American countries that are prescribed hydroxychloroquine for the prevention of malaria. Those people that were prescribed it have, I believe it was so far like a 90, it's past 99%. It's near 100% basic immunity to coronavirus.
No kidding.
Yeah. And so I'm looking at this, and so then I end up looking on the same graph that Jacob pulled up before. If you want to pull up Nigeria, India, Indonesia, all these malaria countries, the deaths per 1 million people in the chart, you'll notice that they are, ours is, I guess we'll just pull it up. Ours is high in like 400, 700, something like that. And in India's, where they're having massive cases, everything in that, there's 70. Well, the southern part of India is a very large country. It's over 1 billion people, and its span is very large. And it used to actually like 200 different dialects and everything. And the reason it's one is because the British came and conquered the whole thing. Which one did you pull up here? India. So if you go back to the whole world, just go back to our countries. Yeah. So if we go to, all right, so India, now look at the total death per 1 million population. It's over. So it's 95, right? to 766. So the thing is that malaria is more prevalent in southern India. So it's not all of India that takes, like, you have the Himalayas and everything, like, you have mosquitoes up there. So people aren't taking hydroxychloroquine. It's more, and it's also, you have to have the money to do it. So it's more affluent areas. So it's not the entire population. So then if you go to Indonesia, if you just control F-it, it'll be easier. And then we go to death. So we're at 56. That's another hydroxychloroquine for.
There's a 38 right there too.
The 38. Look at where that's at. Bangladesh. Yeah. So if you look up Niger, Nigeria is good too. They're both in the malaria area. 3. Yeah. Niger, I believe, is.
So basically everyone, and all those, Liberia, Chad, all those African countries as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So anywhere that has that the country mostly prescribes hydroxychloroquine, because there's a few different medications for malaria, but the ones that do hydroxychloroquine, their people are close to immune to it. So
maybe not such a bad idea.
Yeah, actually is looking incredibly promising when you look at the statistics of that. And so I ended up going down this rabbit hole, and so I ended up hitting up my doctor, who has been great for basically helping me with whatever I need. I have a cough, I'm having a hard time sleeping. He'll give me the good cough syrup, whatever I end up needing, like, he's good. I asked for hydroxychloroquine, and he was just like, no, and I was smart about it too. So I said to him, I was just like, hey, listen, traveling to Colombia.
Right.
I'd like to have some of this. And he was just like, no, I can't do that. I was just like, no, come on. I'm going to Colombia. He's like, no. I was just like, I started looking it up. I forget what it is, but a lot of governors have done this. If you could Google, see what you could find, Jacob, on governors, like, not allowing or like punishing doctors. There might be a bit of a Google search, but basically depressing the depression of hydroxychloroquine scripts from Democratic governors has been a thing. And so it ends up becoming a thing here. And I've never had my doctor push back so much. And so I'm like, hey, come on, this really needs to happen. And I'm going, and he sent me all these like CNN articles about hydroxychloroquine. It's been approved by the FDA for years, like since 1955, I believe. And he said, all right. Hydroxychloroquine doesn't work in Colombia, so here's a different medication for your malaria. And I was just like, shit. So anyway, ended up getting that. And then I just ended up learning how to get it through the black market and got it that way. Yeah. I was just like, if somebody really wants to get it, you end up getting it. But just that all that research, I was just like, Christ. And since the Orange Man said it, like, now here's the thing. I wish Trump had better character. As far as being like presidential, more like,
of course. I don't like anyone. Well, some would argue with that. I guess,
some people would argue with that, but I wish he would. But the thing is that he's done a lot of things right. And you can't deny that with how the economy has been going. You can't deny that with he's been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize 3 times. I mean, what he did in North Korea, the peace that he brought in the Middle East on 3 different occasions. I mean, the list, there's so many things that the guy has accomplished. But the media is, whatever he does is bad. When he, like, everybody thought, remember when we thought we were going to nuclear North Korea and then Trump went and all of a sudden went away?
Right.
The media just said, I can't believe Trump did it. Like, it was all of a sudden a bad thing. I forgot what they did, but they spun it to be bad. But they rung it up to be such a horrible thing. So even if he is, that old adage, the old saying of like a broken clock is right twice a day.
Right.
Even if that was the case for him, then there's 2 times a day that he's right about something.
And we shouldn't deny those times just out of spite.
That's all it is. It's just, it means everything he does. We Russiagated the shit out of him. There's nothing that came from that.
Right.
That was all turned out to be, you want to talk about like the true conspiracy? That was true. There was nothing. But we ran for 3 years and impeached the guy on it, and it never actually happened.
No.
And hydroxychloroquine, we could have deaths per 1 million people being like Niger at 9.
Yeah, 0.
I've been taking the stuff. I've done it for like so far 0 side effects. 7 weeks. I take two pills once a week. 7 weeks. I'm now done with the regimen. Take it as if I was going to take it for malaria. Not 1 side effect. I'm fine. But they made it look like I was going to freaking pass out. Dude, this stuff's been prescribed since 1954.
All over the world.
Yeah. I don't know how I went down that rabbit hole, but I feel like it was something that needed to go down. All right. So This is all starting a conversation on how your mind has shifted, and so
that's right. There's one question. So far.
So it's the mind has shifted, and it's gone into like a survival mode.
No, let me.
Mine went to survival as well. I mean,
it started in survival, but now it's not. Now tonight we're in a little different situation for my industry, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of industries. But it went to survival. But then it naturally evolved from survival into capitalization, into opportunity, and into just back into growth, future. And it's changed the growth, opportunities, potential, strategies, those have changed. But it did get back rather quickly, I think, into the same mindset it was, just with a little different edge on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, because we stopped being scared. It just took about a month for us. After a month, it's like, okay, plan's working. It's not great. No one's retiring on this shit, but we're good. We're all right. We can ride with this. And so for me, it was a matter of days from there that you start flowing again. You know, I've got 2 new concepts on deck that are ready to go. Yeah. You know, and of course it's taking into the new world order into effect into that, you know, and how we can make sure to protect ourselves and capitalize. But things are grinding again.
Do you invest much
in the market?
Anything.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So based on the new world order and everything, okay, think about this for a second. What would be some of your recommendations, some things that you've seen that have worked during this time of chaos, and what do you think is coming? If you want to talk about that from like an entrepreneur standpoint, it doesn't matter, from your standpoint, what you see as being some things that have some promise due to these times we're in. I have to pee. Did you see the CDC sign in the bathroom on how to wash your fucking hands?
Yeah. Which is good, because I had no idea.
It's just like step 1, water. Step 2, soap. Step 3, wash them. It's unreal. But that's what the government says I need to put up, because putting up a sign that says wash your hands, Jacob wouldn't get that. Either would I.
No,
right? Our brains would explode.
We had kickback. So when we open Life and Time, now part of it in the bathrooms, I hate touching things. I'm not a germaphobe at all, but I don't want you to touch anything. So auto flushers, auto sinks, auto everything.
Yeah.
Well, and then in this one, for the first time
ever, because you're an adult, and that makes sense.
For the first, and I watched like my 3-year-old. He's still potty training, and he's about there, But when he goes to lift up the toilet seat, he like grabs it with both hands and then puts his hands on the side. I was like, oh, God. But I was like, we'll do the responsible thing. They'll love it over here. So no paper towels. So we have the air dryers. But then post-COVID, now everyone's mad that we don't have air dryers, so we don't have paper towels to open the door. And I'm like, damned if you do. I'm trying.
Well, that's a good idea. Oh God, there's so many things. I want to stick on investing though. So what do you think? What do you think are some like good plays, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, that you've seen that's come up because of COVID?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this. It's a little harder space. It's a sketchy space for general investing, like as far as stocks and things like that. But our cannabis companies have been killing it.
Have they?
Killing it.
I thought that that'd be a bit of a risk just due to like how much competition there was.
A lot. Yeah. It is a risk. It's not nearly as fun of a space as people like to think it is from an investment. The regulatory issues are a hurdle that is really not to be messed with. It's a nightmare. Taxes are a nightmare. 280E is a nightmare. I mean, all these things, and you just got to play this game. You should see the flow chart of like how money goes just to play the game, right? But the industry as a whole is, no pun intended, absolutely on fire. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. You know, at the dispensaries, we saw people coming in like, man, I got laid off. I'm not getting drug tested for 3 months. A lot of that, right?
There you go.
Also a lot of like, man, I got nothing to do. I don't want to sit at home and drink all day. Yeah. So I'm going to use something else. A lot of people, especially in the later months, man, I've developed anxiety. I'm not sleeping. I'm worried. I've got a lot of issues, like mental issues. I've heard this can help a lot of first-time consumers. It's not just standard consumers using more. It's a lot of new consumers.
So it's like that thing we were talking about earlier about people getting depressed and whatnot. Like there's something to it, and you would have actual monetary proof on that.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yep. And so that space, and you know, look, I think, say what you want. I'm a very conservative person, but I believe in the product. I don't use it a ton myself, but man, there is a time and a place, and it's beneficial for a lot of things, and it's got a lot of therapeutic. It's also fun. I hate it when people are like, "Oh, it's also fun."
Of course,
but
side effects of eating
sleeping,
Cheetos.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Sleeping, depression, anxiety, all these things. So we're seeing there's been a huge and that's not going away. So I do think from an investment standpoint, even though it's sketchy right now, the industry as a whole, all the publicly traded companies for the most part, man, and you watch those things over the last 2 years, it is a freaking roller coaster. So don't hop on if you're not ready for a ride. But the space has been good. It's been good this year. Other than that, I mean, from my perspective, from a stock perspective, I invest fairly conservative. I'm pretty heavy on stocks, but I don't move things around a lot. I don't play timing games.
Either do I. I don't have time for it.
Yeah. Let it ride.
Timing.
Yeah. But I think if you look at what I've been looking at from investment, both in business ideas, I'll tell you what, you got some money to play right now. Buy any gun manufacturer stock you can get your hands on, every single one, and sell it in 7 months.
Why 7?
Maybe 12, maybe 18.
Well, why sell at any of those intervals?
Because at some point, this happens every election year, but especially this one. So you look at the gun industry as a whole, and since March, it's been on fire. I mean, more so than ever.
I can't believe how much 223 is going for.
Oh,
it's like 50 cents to $1.
If I told you how many rounds of 9mm were back ordered in this country, it would blow your mind.
How many are back ordered?
Starts with B's, and it's lots of them. There are, I believe, I want to say it was 5 million a couple months ago. I think we're at 7 or 8 million first-time gun owners in this country. First time, not people buying more, not stockpiling, buying their first one ever.
Yeah.
There's civil unrest. This is what causes this. So you look at the last year. So things have already been on fire. There's been panic buying. There's been millions of first-time gun owners in the market. Existing gun owners are buying more. They're buying ammo. They're buying pieces. They're buying parts. That had nothing to do with the election. That was all COVID.
Yeah.
Now,
it was, unrest and when you had like
COVID and riots and the George Floyd and
people, afraid of like protecting their family.
Yes.
You're saying defund the police, then what does that mean?
Right.
It means I defend myself. First-time gun owners, there you go.
Yep. I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me. Can I borrow one? No, can't. You voted against that 8 years ago. It's illegal. I'd love to let you borrow one. Can't do it. But, and so now we're just now getting into like election year and changeover, right? Run.
Mm-hmm.
Biden's going to talk about gun control. And now
he said he was going to make them illegal. So,
and we'll see what happens with the Georgia Senate seats, right? If the Republicans hold on to that, right, just get one of them, he can talk about it all he wants. And at some point, year, 2 years, 2.5, 3 years down the road, they'll give him something. They'll give him 30-round mags. They'll give him background checks, which I don't think anyone has an issue. In Oregon, most states have been doing thorough background checks forever.
I don't have an issue with background checks.
Of course not.
The 30-round mag doesn't make sense to me, but...
No, that's an infringement, but in my opinion, and the opinion of the courts at this point. But, so you're going to have a couple years, and as long as he's talking about it,
it's going to go
sales, this is not going to stop for years until the day something passes. Or... on the flip side, until the day they realize nothing's going to pass.
Do you have a gun manufacturer you like more than others?
Smith has been a massive stock. Smith has been now it's also, there's been times when you're like, oh my God, I'm down 80%, right? Because then you look at year 2 of Trump's election, and you've got conservative control. Everyone's been stockpiling because they were, was Hillary going to win? Is he going to win? So they've been stockpiling. And then he wins. And then it's like, oh boy, everyone's stocked up. Everyone has ammo. Everyone has guns. No one's buying shit.
Yeah.
But you look at a company like Smith & Wesson, they're very healthy. They're a well-run company. They're not run just like a gun manufacturer. They're run like a very professional business. Yeah. So they ride the waves pretty well, and they're on fire right now, and they're gonna stay that way. Ruger's the same way. So both those are really strong. Yeah. Obviously, and who owned them, but Remington, just declared bankruptcy. It's not foolproof, but I think Smith is a really, really good investment right now.
Well, yeah, that's why I asked, because, it's individuals that run companies, right? So you can't just buy like gun stock, like guns, future on guns. Maybe you can. No, I don't think you can. I don't think there's a future on guns.
But
you can on coal and
grass.
Yeah.
I mean,
so you have to make the decision on like, well, who's running the companies and how well is it being run and stuff like that. So that's why I asked on that.
You're not going to miss in the gun industry for the next 18 months.
Yeah. I've personally have protected Mazama by getting our assets more into, instead of, we used to have it ran where the reason why we survived the COVID, March, we got hit with a 60% loss in gross sales in March. It was insane because we had a bunch of restaurant clients that we've pivoted from, and we had a lot of auto dealerships that we've also pivoted from. One of our dealership groups, we have about 33 dealerships in Pennsylvania. They were the first state to lock down, and I was on the scare train. I was watching this stuff January, February. I locked down before the governor told you. So I was just calling all of our clients being like, hey, sky is falling. Half of my clients listened to me, the other half didn't. One of them that did was the 33 dealerships in Pennsylvania. So we made sure we had online retail ready to go because the lockdown was going to come. So we had online retail ready to go. Lockdown came. Hey, we'll sell online. Governor said that was illegal. So for that month, we lost all the revenue from them as well, even though we prepared for it. But all of a sudden, online retail was illegal as well. That got flipped. So we built that back up and we ended up coming back. Anyway, the reason that we were able to survive after letting go a bunch of people is that we've always had a lot of cash in our checking and savings accounts. Enough to pay 3.5, sometimes 4 months of payroll in case things went wrong. And that turned out to, it's always, since we've owned the business for 7 years, and it's just always been a surplus that's been in there, like as a just in case. And for the first time, that just in case was definitely used, and I was very thankful it was, and didn't have to say, hey, take the sign down, the whole company is going away, which could have happened. But I started to realize one thing that I started to research was monetary history, economics, things like that a lot as of March, trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And so I haven't done it with all of the literal US dollars, but some of them, converting them where it's still Mazama owned, but it's owned in silver, gold, and Bitcoin. And what that's done is just gone up in value, and at any time I can take those, and like I don't think a lot of people know this, but you can literally sell like a hard asset of silver or gold within a day. So all of a sudden you make payroll and stuff like that. You can go to a coin shop and also so you can sell online if they're closed and put it into a box in a way and it's sold. And Bitcoin can also be sold in a matter of seconds. So I just started learning like all these dollars that the government is printing into oblivion, they're going to lose their value, and the US dollar index has been going down. And so that's been working. I just had to change my mind frame to being like, these assets still pay my employees.
Right.
There's just a little step in between.
Right.
So it's still in there like as Mazama owned assets, but they're going up in value. And so when D-Day comes, which is fucking tomorrow, we'll be even better than if we were to have done nothing. So I found that to be very beneficial, and just like understanding that that's legal and doable for my CPA. Because I didn't know, man. I'm figuring this stuff out as I go along. You know,
well, I think we all are at this point.
I guess so. What would you say to? Another thing I think might end up. I'm looking at really seriously right now is other commodities. Like I think all commodities are looking good right now, like copper, you're saying, but uranium and coal.
Yeah.
I think could have a huge potential upswing due to AOC will go on TV and start yelling about all of her crazy policies over and over again. But if it comes down to there being lights on or not, even she's going to go with the lights being on because there has to be electricity for her word to get out there. She lives in New York.
I think that power comes from.
Comes from coal.
Yep.
Yeah. So it only goes too far until like they realize that their message can't get out, and at the end, like you don't want the lights on. So right now, buy low, sell high, and both of those are very, very low right now. So it's just been kind of something I've been looking at and eyeing. What would you say to like close? I'm trying to close with this. What do you say to business owners of Oregon right now?
Dig the fuck in. It's time to fight.
Yeah.
And that literally and figuratively. That's the best way I could put it. It's not going to get easier anytime soon, but there's no one looking out for us but ourselves.
Right.
And it's time to tap into those resources, tap into your clientele, and it is I'll tell you this. That seems so dramatic. I like that, and I don't want to digress too much.
But that's what.
I'm glad you said. I wish
I
had like two more things on that same line. I just close it out. But we have kind of we haven't changed a lot of the business, but we certainly were told some things, right? We were told some things by our customers and learned a lot about ourselves in the last 8 months that did change some of our business practices, right? Things we can do, things we can change, things for us, it's as simple as like, okay, menu items, pricing, things like that, right? We had to take some liberties in the beginning to survive. And then we learned like, well, man, those weren't really liberties. We actually, customers want these things so keep your eyes open and adapt. Now we always have to adapt, always. And now more important than ever. And so I think, there are opportunities out there, but for 6 months, the first 6 months of this, well, I'd say after the first month, about 5 months, okay, we started chasing opportunities, right? It's going to be there. I'm not nearly as bullish as I was. I know we're going to come out the other side.
Bullish in what? New opportunities?
Yes. We're going to come out the other side for sure. But I know for our organization.
Why are you not bullish as you were? And when you're talking about opportunities, are you talking about opportunities in starting new businesses?
Growing businesses, starting new businesses, buying businesses, investing more, being more aggressive with your money at that, even at good values. There's a lot of good values out there for all of those things, for investing, for buying, for growing, all these things. I will never not be aggressive. It's not, I talk about it at home with my wife and she's like, shut up. Like, well, who do you think you're lying to right now?
What? And you saying that you're
saying
not
like,
aggressive?
I'm just going to slow down. I think I'm going to stop. I'm not going to worry about growth. I'm just going to kind of hunker in, but I have tampered a little bit in the sense that, okay, out of necessity, like, because is it going to be March? Is it 2 weeks? Is it March? What's on the other side? And I'm a lot less sure of the short term what's on the other side than I think I was 6 months ago. 6 months ago, I was like, okay, I was like you. I didn't think it was going to be over in a month.
Yeah.
I never thought that for a second. But I did think, okay, by fall, okay, by this, by September.
There's a lot of talks of like June.
Yeah. Summer. It's going to get hot.
And that seemed long.
Oh, it seemed terrible.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay.
March, April, May,
short term.
June.
And now it's a little bit like, let's capitalize the most on what we have, maybe. So let's not just stop. We're certainly not going to pull the e-brake, but instead of focusing that efforts on expansion, on growth, on new opportunity, let's just maybe search for, so let's say bullish, but let's search for that opportunity within our existing framework. Just in case. Let's tamper down a little bit just in case. So that's kind of what I would recommend. And also that as of right now, things are bad. Economic indicators are still pretty high. U.S. corporations still have cash. Like, that consumer confidence I'm worried about a lot, right?
I don't know how the hell they are.
I don't either, but they are, right?
It's quantitative easing. But
yeah, possibly. But, dig in, keep fighting, and there's going to come a time where if it gets bad enough, I've been saying for like a year, like, man, 6 months, now would be a great time for the aliens to show up. We need a new enemy.
They tried to say they showed up.
I know. No one cared.
No one gave a shit.
I know.
That would have been huge news in 2019. But it's just like, I got bigger problems with authoritarians telling me I can't go outside. Yeah.
But if a common enemy showed up and we could unite, that'd be great. But that common enemy is going to show up soon if this keeps going. And that's, to everyone out there, that's my thought. And I think that's what I would encourage is, and that common enemy is right at our doorstep. It's not an alien anymore. It's right at our doorstep. And at some point, everyone's going to have been pushed far enough. And look, I'm not saying by any means that, everyone's going to take up arms and the revolution is here. I'm not saying it. I don't think we're nearly as far off as we'd like to think, but I'm not saying that.
I think it's closer than we all think too.
But we have to literally and figuratively dig our heels in and have to stop getting pushed, and everyone's going to do it together. So write it out, get creative, think outside your box, open your fucking mind. Don't be so closed-minded to new ideas, to changing your opinion, to changing your solutions. Follow the paths that make sense, not the ones you want to make sense. Mm-hmm. Follow those paths, ride this thing out, and at some point, if we all end up, that path ends up at the same roadblock, we'll break through it together. And I'd like to think that's still on the table.
God, it's just at what point is that roadblock, man? We're not there yet?
I feel like we're pretty close.
I do too.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of
I don't know how, but I will say this. Look, love it or hate it, PPP money bought a lot of months. EIDL loans bought a lot of months. That bought people some time. But I know for us, that shit's long gone.
I haven't heard of any more PPP loans. I know that shit's gone for everybody.
I don't think there's any more, but I think it bought some time right now. If that had never come, if that wasn't part of anything.
I don't hear any talks of any more coming.
No. Well,
so we're locking down without that.
With nothing. And that's why I think this time, like, that's, again, the door's closing behind us,
I agree. So, it's funny, man, because the PPP money kept the business going, which gives us food, which stops hunger, which stops the revolution.
Right.
So
that circle missed the link here. Yeah.
Last time I checked, you don't have that PP. And even if you do end up creating another thing, I'm against that as well.
So am I.
Because you're just saying, like, for everybody who's been saving their normal dollars and they're thinking that they have a nice savings nest egg, everything like that, you're taking the value, you're stealing the value of everything they took away from through inflation.
Look, you gotta have your cash flow. You have to have several months. We're same thing, 3 months. That's always our goal, 3 months. We're super labor intensive. That's what I mean. For us, you got to. Yeah. So as small a margin as it is, the amount of food, just look at groceries we buy in the restaurants, right? Groceries. And fortunately for us, now we had net 30 and I moved it all to an Amex, right? So we bought all our groceries on an Amex and I treated it just like a net 30. It worked out great. Get some miles, get some benefits, and pay that down at 30. Well, when your revenue shuts off overnight, at American Express, like $250,000. Mm-hmm. And we had payroll cover. We had a lot of, we had money in the bank for about 3 months, but you look at that and think, look, for a big corporation, I'll give them credit. I called them up. They're like, oh, your restaurants, we're good. Here's the plan for you guys.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, it was awesome. That was the same day I laid off about 60 people in 3 different meetings. And then I get home and I'm like, okay, now it's time to talk about mortgages, AP. Mm-hmm. And 90% of ours was all on Amex by design, and it worked out great at the time. And I call them up and I'm just like, this is the make or break. I really thought it was that time. This is the make or break. Mm-hmm. And they're like, we'll give you 90 days, no, non-payment penalties, no interest. Okay.
That's awesome.
Anything else? Yeah. But yeah, so but if we were on net 30 with one of these big food providers, like most people are.
Yeah, they're screwed.
You better hope everyone's playing ball.
Mm-hmm.
And then, 6 weeks later, PPP starts showing up, things start showing up. So even if then we can extend, you can buy an extra 30 days, an extra 60 days. Right now, I don't think there's any relief coming.
What do you think's going to happen with that PPP anyway? That's all been spent.
Well,
it's been the most Vegas bullshit rules ever.
I mean, so I was joking about this in the beginning. Like ours, I can say this, it was like 75% could be, or then they changed it, 65% could be later. We spent 100% of ours on payroll. It has always
been maybe forgiven. That's been the terminology in the contract. Yeah. Fucking who puts maybe in a fucking contract? The government. That's who. Got it. Thanks, guys.
We haven't been forgiven yet. We spent 100% of our PPP money went to payroll. 100%.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's so. Yeah, ours was that too.
Yeah, it was not the 25% to rent or whatever. And but I was joking,
crushing the bottle.
I was. Why not?
It's Tuesday. Yeah, it's Tuesday. It's fucking a day before shutdown.
Like, man, I want
shutdown Eve, man.
Right? Yeah, part 2.
Yeah, because the first one worked.
Yeah,
fucking cheers.
Days.
Yeah,
14 days.
COVID.
And I'm like, I want to be around in 2 years when the government tries to collect it was 5 billion, 6 billion.
What number are you referencing?
The first round of the first stimulus, which was the PPP and
that's 7 trillion
or trillion. Sorry, Jesus, my bad.
Yeah, no, it's all right. Just
7 zeros. T or B. $7 trillion in unsecured, non-guaranteed debt. Mm-hmm. I want to be around in a few years when that note comes call. Now for us, like, honestly, I had a little bit of a moral dilemma taking the money. I really did. I thought long and hard.
Mm-hmm.
But then I knew Boeing was going to get 10 billion, and I knew that everyone else was going to get their billions. And I'm like, you know what? We need it.
Mm-hmm.
Could we survive without it? Maybe.
Yeah.
But everyone else is going to get it. I'm going to get it, and I'm going to use it all on payroll, 100%. I'm going to have no guilt about it. I'm going to keep as many people employed as I can. I'm going to bring some people back. Of course, then I couldn't bring people back. No one would come back to work.
Weird,
they're making more money on their unemployment.
That was funny. It's called. I had that happen with a couple of people, and they're like, "Oh no,
listen."
I'm like, all right, good job, government. Listen. You just incentivize people to stay home.
So I was so proud. So it was just the salaried managers for 3 weeks, and open to close, all of us, myself, my partner in there every day,
flipping burgers.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about 3 weeks, and I said, okay, so I started being daily. If we do like this many dollars in sales today, and it all started in the back of the house. Kitchen's the hardest. So I said, go to my chef, say, all right, we break this many $100 a day. You get 2 hours of labor in the back. Mm-hmm. And it worked like that. Okay, we do this a day, you can have 6 hours in the back. This a day, you can have 8 hours in the back. So we'd finish the day. And we did have one person that was kind of he was a sous chef. He was borderline salaried. So he was wanting to work. And so we'd call him like, hey, I need you tomorrow. I got 6 hours for you. I need you tomorrow. I got 9 hours for you. Badass, right? Well, after a month, it was like, okay, we're hitting these numbers consistently. We can kind of build a schedule around this. Let's bring a couple. We got to bring, I think it was 4 people we were going to bring back between the front and back of house. And I'm like, you know what, guys? I let everyone off. I'd really like to make these calls. I want to call them and tell them we got their job back. I'm really proud of this. I'm really stoked. Our plan worked.
Poor Garrett.
Our plan worked. This is going to be awesome. And it's been rough. I need it. And I think I called 5 people personally and got told no thanks by all 5. Of the first 12, so we made 15 calls. 12 people said no thanks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, with the first one, I'm like, what? I don't think you understood me. I don't think you understood me.
They didn't have a job lined up.
No one hiring. And then I got to the point, and then we got to the point where we told them, I said, no, of course, we're theoretically obligated to let unemployment office know. We offered them work, and they said no. We're not going to be that employer. We're not going to be the guy that does that. Supposed to, but fuck, that's a, lose-lose. And we're also customer service based. So I certainly don't want to guilt or force anyone to work. So we just kind of let everyone know, look, okay, here where you're coming from. I get it. You're getting paid right now. I get it. But that goes away. And when that goes away, we have a lot of people looking for work. And if you don't come back to work now, like you lose your place in line. You can reapply. We might hire you back. Mm-hmm. But you lose your place in line. And that didn't work on one person. Not one. Every single one was, okay, yeah, no, I got you. All right, cool.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, it's just a little more thought would have been good. But
so you ended up finding people eventually?
Yeah, I mean, we got some folks back, like I said at the time, we never have since then got back to our full employment. That's one of the things we learned. Mm-hmm. We were fat in some areas we didn't realize we were fat in.
I learned that too.
Yeah, and so
you noticed our office, I was able to, thank God, negotiate ourselves because our landlord was cool too.
Yeah.
So he owns
same landlord?
This one. Yeah. And so he let us go from the 7,000 square foot to this 3,700, and it's half the size, but it's like perfect. Like we don't need any more for the amount of people we have. I mean, there's some shit as you walked in here that needs to be cleaned up. We just got in here, so we're still putting stuff together. But also our signs on Colorado, where it was on Cyber Street.
Yeah,
nobody drives on Cyber Drive. Nobody, like literally. My office window looked at Cyber Drive, and I would see one car every 5 minutes at most, probably more 15.
The only time I had been on Cyber Drive was going to your office before it was your office, because I lost my social security card.
Yeah.
So I guess twice.
Yeah.
Twice. Once.
While Colorado is there's a car every 15 seconds.
Oh yeah.
If not less. So that's good. And just also we had it with having to let go with a few people. So we've shrunk down in our size, knowing that we didn't need as many. We got way more efficient in a lot of areas. I negotiated everything you can think of negotiating happened, but then the things that you don't think you can. Mm-hmm. Like, honestly, we have this like $10 Instagram deal, Bob, from some vendor that we pay that's probably in Bangladesh. I don't know. They don't have a phone number. Them and a ton of others like that. I just emailed being like, hey, COVID hit. If you can help at all, that'd be great. If not, we're going to have to cancel. All of a sudden, the $10 became $7. And that happened. And that seems like not a lot. But when that happened with all of our vendors, it was great. It was allowed us to be like, hey, we're going to make it through this thing. And so that was like a fantastic thing. And now that we're in here and we're more efficient and everything, and we went from 4 tech decks down to 1 tech deck to run the business. So we have one being HubSpot that runs our entire business, instead of it was like Trello, client success, a version of Salesforce that's a piece of crap, and Google Sheets all running a company. Right. Now it's just down to HubSpot. So things have become much more efficient. You can see how the company's working. You can see where things slip through the cracks. You can automate things around it. And then on top of that, you're not walking like 7,000 square feet for the amount of people we have is a lot of area. So people are really spread out.
At least 6 feet of separation.
Well, we do have that. I got the tape measure out when shit was getting more serious. And I was like, I know we're 6, but let's make it 7 so I don't get yelled at. They're sending spies.
Who?
OSHA, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. That's news.
We had a couple calls.
Yeah,
anonymous.
Yeah, I've gotten one too. But no, they're sending in spies, man, to the business community. Like they'll send in people that are like into offices. So obviously you're much more public facing. I'm not, but they're literally like, I had to contemplate letting a guy in to use the bathroom who was working on the roof because we had a leak, and he was just decked out and working on like knee pads and everything. I'm like, okay, I don't think OSHA would go this far, because I've been hearing from friends in the community who are entrepreneurs of offices and distributors and stuff like that, of people come in acting like they want the business for something, and all they're doing is checking and making.
Yeah, which like it's in their job supposed to be enforcement, not. Gotcha.
Not stormtrooper bullshit.
Right.
Yeah. So we're locking our doors as of tomorrow.
Saw that.
Yeah.
I saw the sign.
Yeah, the sign.
I stood there for a second, and she looked at me like I was an idiot, and I finally just opened it, and I was like, oh, okay. Got it.
Well, it's just like I wouldn't have done it if I haven't heard from the business community that these spies are actually happening. This is literally like, what kind of a fear state are we living in? Kavista.
The number one story yesterday, I think it was on KTVZ, was the Deschutes County hotline.
What's that?
The COVID narc line.
Oh, God.
And like, I mean, and it happened early on too, right? Hey, turn in your
I didn't
neighbors.
even know there was a COVID narc line. I knew there was a way for people to complain. I thought it was just...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. It's just...
It does make sense.
It's just frustrating.
Yeah. So...
COVID narc line. 80% of them called in by Californians. Bet that stat isn't that far off.
Hey.
I listen, here's the thing. I think that because I've been watching this town go further and further to the left, it is what it is. All I'm saying is there should be a law nationwide that you can't vote for a town or the state or whatever after living there for 2 years.
I totally
knowing how the culture exists and lives.
Totally agree with that. I would not disagree with that at all. And you know what? You know what infuriates me? I technically live in the county.
You weren't able to vote for city council.
My address is Bend.
Yeah.
On my address, it's
happened to
Bend.
my mom.
I own 4.
Where do you live?
4 off east of town.
Yeah, you conservative asshole.
Uh-huh.
That's exactly. They gerrymandered the shit out of you.
Yeah. So my address is Bend, but I live past 27th. I have 4 different business addresses in the city limits. I employ 120 people in the city limits of Bend, but I don't get a vote in the city of Bend.
Yeah, I noticed that with my mom. She lives...
But you can live here for, theoretically, they say a year if it's enforced, and run for office in Bend.
That makes sense.
But I can't vote for office in Bend with a Bend address and businesses in Bend and over 100 employees in Bend. Yeah, there are problems with that. And like, I look at it as a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Growing up here, I mean, I ran from security. I can't even tell you how many times from Brooks Scanlon when we were used to go trespass through the logs, jump off the footbridge, and swim through and run from security. We'd see them coming in their white Jeep Cherokee. They drove them. They're always the same vehicle. Their white Jeep Cherokee. We'd see it leave the mill office. And then we knew we had about 3.5 minutes to get out of there. Okay. I grew up doing that. I also wouldn't be where I'm at in my career without the growth this town has experienced. So I look at it through open eyes.
Yeah.
I really do. And I'm
okay
partially I'm grateful for it.
I'm just talking about the politics that have come with.
Yes, the idea of changing it to be the exactly like what you fled from. Mm-hmm. That's a problem. The idea, there's an arrogance that comes about of, you know what? I can fix it here. I love it here, but I can make it better. I'll fix it here. That is a problem. You know, I'm not anti-growth at all, but it is tough. Like, people have to understand, for someone like me,
why this was a great place and why they moved here.
Why there would be some resentment. Why there would be a little bit of issue. Like, I get it. I love it. That's why I'm grateful for what we've been able to do because of it. But there's double-edged sword there. Yeah. And it is hard. I've had a lot of deep conversations where, you know, they're like, well, that's hypocritical of you, or no, it's not. It's not. Like, it's hypocritical to not understand, like, man, maybe I should go in here and just chill out for a minute, check things out, see how things roll, and why it became this way, and why it was the community that I loved, and why I wanted to move here. And then think about things.
Yeah. 2 years.
I love it.
You got to learn, meet your neighbors, understand a community. And if you still think after 2 years that you're way or the highway, then you can vote. That's fine. But something tells me you might change your mind a little bit.
It's as cliche as it gets. And I hate to talk, you know, but I'm a big fan of Rogan, and, you know, his move to Texas, he had dinner with Greg Abbott like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And sought out the governor, like, hey, can we meet? And he's like, look, I'm not voting. I'm going to find 10 locals that have been here forever, one of which is the governor. and say like, all right, teach me some things. You know, he's a very self-progressed liberal, damn near progressive on most issues.
He's weirdly that way, right?
Like, minus Second Amendment, minus like a handful of things. But he's, you know, and that's one thing I've gained a lot of more respect for him in that with his move. And I mean, he moved to fucking Austin. It's not like he moved to Fort Worth.
No.
You know, he moved to Austin.
Yeah.
But he's like, you know, I left an area that I fled. So I'm going to talk to some folks, including the governor, and I'll make up a new mind, you know? But it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You want to change your mind? You want to open to new ideas? Willing to open your eyes and just accept, you know, hey, maybe some parts of my thinking were flawed. Maybe I was too locked into party lines. I was too locked into certain idealisms. You have to be willing to open up those things in order to, you know.
And before this flood of people came here, you know, we had a little bit of homeless people, but the camps that are showing up right now is not a thing that used to exist except for by Lowe's. Besides that one's exploded.
That's where my office is.
I know. So you know.
I see it every day.
You got the Revere, and then a new one is built up off right next to Crux.
I just saw that today for the first time.
Yeah, me too. So I got back from Mexico, and I was just like, okay. And this is all new. So is all these people coming in, and it's just like, okay, what I haven't studied this well enough. I know a lot of it has to be from the lockdowns and things of that nature. I'm just afraid of the new mindset that's coming in and how it's going to grow exponentially as it has in Portland, as it has in San Francisco, and as it has in LA. So
it becomes a danger. That's the thing. It's not about sympathy or understanding. It's about law and order, civil safety.
Well, the one thing that could be very scary is I was like, why is it that this homeless population continues to grow in these areas and everything? It's like, well, they end up becoming these like, hey, we're going to do all these things for homeless people in towns like progressive towns like San Francisco. And so you're like, okay, great. Look at this. This is really great, and virtue and all this stuff. But one of the big flaws that I found and that most of these cities end up doing is they build shelters for them, but they kick them out of them if they do drugs.
Right. They
want to do drugs.
Right.
So you build a bunch of vacant places because you're enforcing that, because that's what. So I mean, the way I'm looking at it, I'm like, that's what's going to end up happening here, I guess. So I mean, if you're going to do that, do it to get them back on their feet. But this is going to sound ridiculous, but it's better than having a bunch of human feces in the street. Let them do drugs and get their life back together.
Right. Let's work on one rehab step at a time.
If they decide that living on the street and doing drugs is better than living in the home you built them and the shelter, whatever sort of dwelling it is, then they're going to do that.
That's what they're going to do.
Because freedom of choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just look at this, I'm like, Christ. And you know, I thought at the way that Ben was growing that like, I'm a small town kind of guy. I've been living here for 9 years, and I've been coming out here ever since I was born from Chicago. My dad got a house on top of Cinder Butte when I was 1. So we spent every month of July, the entire month of July, plus about every other Christmas in Redmond for my entire life. So
we used to be great deer hunting off of Cinder Butte.
Oh, my mom got a 250-pound buck archery off of Cinder Butte this season. Yeah.
Dad's from Redmond. We grew up hunting out that area.
Yeah. So I've watched it. Great. I remember when there wasn't the bypass in not only Redmond but Bend, and my dad complaining the whole time when we were trying to go to like Benham or Dillon Falls and complaining about the Bend traffic without a bypass. And I'm like, gosh, if he was only around today, how much he was just. So, I really like this small town feel. And so this is starting to get out of the question. I'm not at the point where I'm like looking at options or anything like that. But, if you keep on pushing, and if the people don't stand up and start doing something, then you're going to have people like you and I and other entrepreneurs that make this town run bail.
It's tough enough to sit here and say,
like Joe Rogan leaving California. He's one of
Well,
is it hundreds of thousands?
Oh, yeah. And it's hard enough to sit here and say, so I can just live somewhere else, work the exact same amount of time, same amount of everything, probably have lower cost of living, and make 10 to 15% more profit just because of where I live. That's it.
And have your kids go to school.
And kids are in school, playing sports, doing things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to swallow that. You know, Oregon's nice. Bend is awesome. There's a lot of other awesome places.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like there's that new arrogance that I don't think is from anyone that's actually from here. The new arrogance of, well, that's the cost of living here. That's the cost of doing business here. That's the idea. I mean, City of Bend's shutting down their permit system for 3 weeks in a week. 3 weeks. So I've got two permits, the entire permit system for building permits.
When?
Business shuts down.
Oh, they're going to?
Yeah, they're shutting down. Today's the 17th. I want to say they're shutting down in like next week, Thanksgiving week, and they're shut down through like the middle of December.
Done. Jesus.
Yeah, the entire thing. So I've got 2 businesses waiting on permits. I've got a final for the bar coming. I've got the East Side Life and Time that we're building.
They're shutting it down because it's not safe, right?
But anyway, so there's things like that where there's just no consideration. And I also look at it like this, like I like living in a balanced community. I mean, look, Bend has been purple for a long time. Time.
Yeah.
Not when I was growing up, when I was in high school, but 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I like purple a lot. I really do. Purple provides balance. It's why I'm really, for a lot of reasons, but really hoping that, you know, conservatives, Republicans hold one of those Senate seats because it provides a little balance. When that balance is lost, power is drunkening, and power, and right now, when you look at the left and the Democrats in Oregon, they have the ultimate power, which is ultimately corrupting, right?
Yeah.
And when you lose all sense that your voice or vote makes any difference at all, it's like we talked about earlier. One of the best traits of a good fighter is knowing when to run. And the difference is that in this fight, that side has reinforcements showing up every day by the hundreds, thousands, every day. So the balance just shifts further and further. We're not getting more towards purple. We're not getting more towards the middle. We're getting more towards just one side. And so someone like myself looks at it and says, man, all right, where's the line in the sand? At what point do you draw a line and say, okay, kids got to go to school. Kids got to play sports. It's got to make sense to work. It's got to make sense to take the risks that we take to be business owners. There's got to be a reward on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And when I know that reward is so much bigger somewhere else, man, it just gets harder and harder every day.
And that's capitalism.
You know, that's capitalism. Yeah. That's voting with your wallet, right?
That's why you end up going where it's easier to make a living and grow your family. The problem, God, you know, when you were saying Bend's purple and everything, and I know it has been, but now it's getting blue. Yeah, it's very blue and it's getting more and more blue. What I don't understand is I really am never political. I'm just like, it is what it is, and I'll play by the rule book. That's how I've always been in my young entrepreneur life, is just like, whatever the rule book is, I'll play by it and make it successful. And that's what I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm.
But the rule book is on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand how people can't see that it's on fire and how they're trying to add to it. So that's why I you know, our conversation has gone as far as it has when we talk about business. You know, before it's just like, yeah, you know, I like listen to Jordan Peterson. This is how I built the Pen Barrel and this is that. And now we're like, what the fuck is good? Like, we're seriously locking down. Like, people are being deprived. They're supposed to not see their families on Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
And the same shit is already being pressed by the left media for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. We've got to
pump the brakes here.
And if we don't, like, you're going to lose the innovative people that made the town as brilliant as it is.
That's exactly right. And I think people underestimate, we all as humans have a level of arrogance that just comes with being a human.
Yeah.
Some more than others, of course. But the idea of my way's right, your way's wrong, it's extremely arrogant on both sides, regardless of what any side. The idea that I'll fix it for these guys, I'll fix it for these locals, man, I can change things, I make it better. It's extremely arrogant, and the idea
that's how communism starts.
The idea that it will just all work out the way it's supposed to, as long as we do things my way or this way.
I know it didn't work in California, but it'll work this time.
Yeah. Communism's never actually been done right.
Yeah, that was all like true communism was never done because they didn't do it right. That's what they're saying is if I was in charge, it would go differently. And I'm just like, okay, well, last time I checked, every time it's been tried has led to mass genocide. But all right, let's see what happens when you do it.
And, it's disheartening. And I don't, something we go back with, my wife and I go back and forth with almost every day. Because it's become a very contentious issue. And my wife, she's not political. She's kind of just goes with the flow when it comes to that. Till the last 6 months. And all of a sudden I get home and every night.
The last 6 months of what?
It's the last 6 months of time. And now she's very involved, very interested, very political. She's reading, watching, studying. We're talking about it every night. Used to be I get home and I'd be like, "Did you see this shit? Did you see this press conference?" And she'd be like,
because it didn't matter. It didn't really affect the life.
Not my thing.
Yeah.
And now it's her thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of people's things now.
Yeah.
And so now it's every night we're talking about it. And, Tim Kennedy had a great post a while ago, and it said, the last thing you want is for people that just want to be left alone is to get involved. And he was referring to like violence. And I'm not necessarily referring to violence yet. Yeah. But no one will leave anyone alone. And this intrusion that's taking place on our liberties and our livelihoods and our personal lives and our freedoms, and that is what it is. This is not being dramatic. This intrusion is big, and it's taking people like us that I no longer go home and play with my kids until they go to bed and then hug my wife and sit down and relax and think of some cool ideas for the next day. I don't do that anymore.
No, neither do I.
Can't.
No, my life is nonstop trying to figure out what the fuck is going on.
What's going on? Yeah. What are we going to do? Where are we going to go? What's the plan? How are we going to do this?
I've always been big into learning, but since March, it's gone to by an order of magnitude.
Well, it used to be fun learning.
Yeah, it was
fun learning. Interesting learning. You know what?
Jordan Peterson's book.
Right. I want to do history.
Yeah.
I want to spend a year on history, U.S. history. I want to spend a year on this. I want to spend time on that. It used to be fun learning.
Now I'm studying history to try to figure out what the hell's happening. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. But now it's like what's necessary? Mm-hmm. What are the necessities to learn? And up all night losing sleep on just trying to make sense of it all, and that's, and what makes it harder here is, again, knowing it's not perfect anywhere in this country, and it's probably here come January, there's probably gonna be some national mandates, but there's already some governors saying, hey, good luck with that, right? Which is their right.
Yeah.
Which is their right to do. But again, knowing, hey, could we just simply call home somewhere else and get back to that learning for fun and being a family unit and making a little more money and providing more jobs and being creative again? Could we really just do that by simply putting a roof somewhere else? We can? It's probably time to have that conversation. And that's where my family's at.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot more families coming. If there's not, I know there is already. And we got to start thinking seriously about our liberties and standing up for what's right. I think the time of being passive needs to conclude.
Agreed.
So, Garrett, been fantastic. Where could people reach out to you online and or come and support your businesses as you're going through this powerful stuff? So we mentioned once, but we're Life and Time will be open.
Life and Time.
Okay.
We're gonna give it a run.
Okay.
I'm gonna stay open as long as we can.
And the Cricket.
The Cricket, we're we'll see. Stand by.
Okay.
Like I said, there's conversations taking place. We're not quite ready anyway, but here in a couple weeks, we're going to be ready. So,
and can people find you online anywhere? Or?
It's still under Mavericks. Everything's still Mavericks Country Bar and Grill.
What about you personally?
Me personally, Willie the Kid 26 on Instagram.
Okay.
It's always been the kid, Willie the Kid.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about it. And I'm not hard to find from email. All the infos, all the info about it, Life and Time, all this, Spin the Kitchen, that's our holding company. It all comes to me, and love talking to people, love helping people. I don't have all the answers, but I'll damn sure give you the ones I got. So by all means, reach out and let's have some conversations.
Yeah. And I can you've given me a lot of great advice as I've been growing in this community. So I appreciate that. So I'm sure you'd be open to helping other entrepreneurs as well.
Love it.
And the main words from this, I would say that you said, the main quote to those entrepreneurs that are listening is dig the fuck in.
That's right.
All right, man.
Double down on that. Absolutely.